Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of thrilling and intense racing action in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. And well, what a round we have in store. 2 rounds remain in this season of the championship, and here we are today in Austria for the Red Bull Ring in round 9 of 10. You're tuning to Split B and we are at a crucial turning point in our Drivers' Championship campaigns. But what a circuit to potentially see one champion crowned and potentially a decisive and divisive round for the other class, because we are here at the Red Bull Ring, previously known as the Österreich Ring, then the A1 Ring, and now known as the Red Bull Ring in honour of the company that bought out and redeveloped the circuit under the guise of none other than Helmut Marko. It is a circuit which spans 2.68 miles in length and consists of a rather simple array of 10 corners. However, to call this circuit simple would not to be doing it justice, whereby for our drivers they'll find themselves having to deal with the interesting contradiction of what will be extensive straights and hairpins the first half of the lap, of course running into those hairpins, heavy braking zones, and in the second half of the lap our drivers will need to contend with what will be a wide barrage of medium speed off-camber corners which can catch out even the bravest and smartest of the drivers. But therefore you're left with a quandary as a driver and a team. Do you set up the car for success on the straights and in the braking zones and those low speed hairpins that follow, or do you go all in on the downforce and maximise your ability to maximise speed through the medium speed corners in the second half of the lap? And with the road being typically wide and most corners offering overtaking opportunities, if you go for a compromise setup you're going to be weak somewhere out on the circuit, because as they say, a compromise setup typically means jack of all trades, master of none. But who exactly will master their craft here in Austria and pick up valuable points to send themselves into the season finale at Suzuka in a week's time? Well, that's what we're here to find out as we tune in live from the circuit side. Indeed, you'll catch this broadcast live right now from Split B, covering your Premier and Club classes plus one half of the Team's Championship, and it's all available on YouTube at SimRacing International's YouTube channel. Just search for SimRacing International or SRI, and why not subscribe today so that we can stay up to date with all the latest broadcasts that we have available from our series, whether they be on a weekly or fortnightly basis. And of course you have 2 broadcasts running in parallel as always of the Thursday GT3 Championship, for we do have 2 splits. You're tuning to Split B, but we also have Split A, which covers the Pro and Elite classes and the other half of the Team's Championship, and you'll be in the very capable hands if you tune into Split A, the capable hands that is of Joe Glass and Darragh Thacker. But if you do stay here in Split B, or perhaps you have the 2 streams on simultaneously, well, your host and commentator for Split B is none other than myself. My name is Paul Walsh, Initiated, and I shall be covering all your racing action as it unfolds. But we talked about the fact that we stand on the precipice of what could be decisions in our Drivers' Championships here in Split B. So without further ado, let's bring up to speed with the story coming into this round and what exactly could go down today and all the theory crafting and more. Indeed, let's not waste any more time. For as we can see as we take a look at our calendar, we're into round number 9. It is Thursday the 27th of August. One more round remains on the 3rd of September, and that'll be at the Suzuka Grand Prix circuit, but here we are at the Red Bull Ring's Grand Prix circuit. It's a 1-hour race, one of 3 that see out the season, but it's a mixed conditions round today, and therefore we can expect some rain to arrive. As to when that rain is expected to arrive, we'll talk more about that very shortly, but it's a brief spell of rain, let's tell you that, but it could definitely shape things up in terms of the race. But prior to this, back on the 20th of August, we had our final round in the US of A, and it was at the Daytona International Speedway. A 1-hour race there under the floodlights in the US state of Florida, and who exactly impressed and who was left a bit distressed? When qualifying, out of the 44 drivers who took to the grid at Daytona, it would be Liam Fraser who took pole and indeed overall pole position with premier pole position by half a tenth in the end, ahead of a season best second place for Steve Hughes. Dean Sheasby took 3rd place on the grid, only 16 thousandths ahead of club pole sitter James Fraser, and he indeed will start 4th from the grid, shocking everybody by taking the provisional overall pole for the opening 15 minutes of the qualifying session. And he seemed set in the end when Liam Fraser did improve to put himself on pole position, when it seemed set we were in for an all Fraser front row, until late improvements of both Hughes and Sheasby prevented it from happening. Danny Weir was second best in club, the best part of a 10th of James Fraser's pole time and 7th overall, and Michael Rhodes and Joshua Downing were immediately behind our second place starter in the club class of Weir, and in the end the trio was separated by only 16 thousandths in total. And given the familiarity of the Daytona circuit to the grid, given the 24 hours of Daytona, it's typically hosted on iRacing on an annual basis as a special event, and the fact that Daytona is a staple of GT3 racing series, all lap times were extremely tight, with first through to 34th overall separated by a single second. This meant there were some shocks in qualifying. The biggest one, well, we've seen a few shocks from this season, but we couldn't quite tell you this one was going to happen. It was Eddie Fearbold, your Premier class driver, struggling and only managing 34th overall, and also it was a subpar qualifying session for Andy Chell in the club class, who took 41st overall, translating into 18th place in club. But of course, qualifying was just one part of the story, and when we did go green flag racing, well, the majority of the field completed the open lap without issue, although there were some incidents for Joshua Downing, Scott Kostrich, Rob Gregg, Simon Hunt and Martin Brandon, and these incidents sent them all down the order. But afterwards, we saw the race settle down very quickly into a pack-based, slipstream-focused race where fuel saving and tyre management are absolutely key. And James Fraser would look extremely quick from the start of the race. However, it was soon discovered why he was so quick at the start, as he was chasing down the top 3 overall, indeed all of them being Premier drivers. Now it's because our club pole sitter had opted to start on qualifying fuel, and he ducked into the pit lane on lap number 5, realising he got it wrong in strategy, and he was forced onto a 2-stop, which would end his dreams of taking his first club class win of the season, and instead he would fight his way through all the way to 8th place in club at the end. Hussein Sarakadesta, Premier driver there, Michael Lecker in club, and Danny Weir in club would all succumb to incidents in the opening third of the race, and this would end their races prematurely in the laps which followed. But most drivers, when it came to strategy, they would go as long as their fuel tanks would allow, although Steve Hughes, your Premier class driver, went the longest of everybody, pitting on lap 22, and at least gaining 1 if not 2 laps over the rest of his peers, and he almost managed to overcut Liam Fraser for the overall Premier lead, but Fraser really went all or nothing with regards to his race strategy, all on pace, no fuel saving or time management whatsoever, and it worked out for him, and so Hughes would find himself instead falling just short, 6/10 short of overcutting what would be Liam Fraser, and instead he was relegated to working with Barry Wenman all the way to the end of the race, where Barry Wenman had made his way from 5th to 3rd, but he didn't have the pace to beat Hughes for 2nd place, despite being in his draft for the rest of the race. As for the club class, well, with the fall from grace for James Fraser, it'll be Michael Rhodes who would lead the way in the club class, as all of his rivals would make errors at some point in the race, and the battle for the rest of the class's top 5 provided the entertainment, as Rhodes definitely had a bit of a quiet race. Ashley Shucksmith managed to out-strategise Steve Rubino to take 2nd place in club, and a late incident for Jack Giles with 2 laps to go saw his hopes of a podium finish completely dashed, as he had to settle for 5th place in the end behind Joshua Downing, who had recovered well all the way up to 4th place. So your winners lost them out in Split B at Daytona. Well, Premier and overall, it was Liam Fraser, who went for that all-or-nothing strategy, and it worked wonders, and it's his 5th win of the season by 1.5 seconds ahead of Steve Hughes, and in the club class, Michael Rhodes converted 3rd in class in qualifying to victory in the end, even though he had some pressure in the early stage of the race, but as all of his rivals made mistakes and he did not, he would take that win by 4.8 seconds ahead of Ashley Shucksmith, and it will be a 3rd win of the season for Michael Rhodes. And that teases us up very nicely coming into this round then, as we talk more and more about round number 9. But as we come into this round, how exactly did the standings stand after a grand total of 8 rounds of racing? Well, we begin with the Premier Drivers' Championship, your top 12 here. Liam Fraser, he stands on the precipice of taking the championship crown. What does he need to do today, I hear you ask, in order to become your champion? All he needs to do, given he's on 742 points, he has that advantage there of 165 points to Barry Wenman. All he needs to do is finish 10th or higher, because he needs to be on a score of 777 points or higher if he wants to be able to take the crown without even needing to worry about turning up at Suzuka, because remember, your season finale is undroppable, so there's a maximum of 100 points available, but if he was to finish in 10th place, that would put him on 778 points. It would put him above the 777 limit. Of course, he did finish the season on 777 points, and it was a tie with Barry Wenman. If Wenman was able to take the wins in both of the remaining rounds, you would see essentially go to count back, and there the 5 wins for Liam Fraser compared to a maximum of 3 for Barry Wenman, theoretically, would see Fraser take the crown. So therefore, for Liam Fraser, the pressure is mostly off, but you can expect him not to be taking his foot off the gas whatsoever. So the bigger question perhaps will be then, who's in the fight for second? Well, the main contenders are Barry Wenman on 577 points, and James Haworth, who returns after missing the previous round, but the Dexterous Motorsport Cyan driver would like to prove a point to his sister team driver of Magenta, and well, he needs to take that win today if he wants to level the score versus Wenman as he chases his first win of the season. We'll have to wait and see if that's the way it goes, as Menno Bloem returns as well, having missed the previous 3 rounds, and the Dutchman absolutely eager to get back racing, although he hasn't had too much time to practice, but he's already been looking at very quick in practice, setting the provisional pole time in the practice session as qualifying gets underway. Ellen Olsen, 5th there. She continues to impress, although that 9th place last time out at Daytona, definitely ending a run of podiums, but on 419 points, she's definitely looking set for a top 5 finish this season. Well, comfortable gap there, the best part of what is none other than 83 points to the driver of what is Clyde Vella. In fact, that's 82 points there, when I can do my maths correctly. And we can see the GPX SimSport Xenon driver right now, after 2 non-finishes, returning to the top 10 last time out, but he'd definitely be wanting to return to the top 5 sooner rather than later, because otherwise Mark DeVries might be able to steal that 6th place off him, given they're both equal on points, but it is a result countback that makes the difference, with the Maltese driver ahead based on wins. He has 1 to DeVries' none. Dean Sheesby sits a further 9 points behind for Moonshiners Racing Club. And right now, he definitely needs to get things reset. He's yet to have a podium since the season opener. It's a crazy statistic, that one, for the British driver. And Ross Wheatley sits only the best part of 33 points behind for DC Motorsport, gradually on the grind. John LeBrook completes your top 10 for GPX Sport Xenon. And then we do have Govind Suresh for Chaps Motorsport Besteros in 11th place. Not quite able to replicate the podium from what was Le Mans last about at Daytona, but definitely giving it his all. And Connor Pink there. The privateer is listed, but he does have a new team he's representing as a privateer coming into this round. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that later on in this broadcast. He sits there on 256 points in 12th. But then we come to the club class, and whilst we do have a runaway leader in Premier who could see all things today, we have none of that here in club. Your top 4 separated by 75 points. Your leader, Michael Rhodes, now with 3 wins in the bag, and his thought process will be, if he can take a 4th today, he'll give himself the best possible advantage as he goes into the season finale, bouncing back from what should have been, most likely in his own words, his 3rd win at Le Mans, and therefore a 4th win at Daytona, but he only has 3 after the incident between him and Sheesby right at the start of Le Mans. But he's bounced back, no doubt about it, and holds there an advantage of 23 points over Joshua Downing, and the Type 2 racing driver finding a bit better form over the last couple of rounds, getting rid of the bad luck, but he needs those podiums to keep flying. He ideally needs that 2nd win to close the gap to Rhodes, particularly given the fact that Michael Rhodes is proven to be absolutely obstinate at the front of the field. Ashley Sharksmith, a dark horse in this championship battle. He now has 5 podiums in a grand total of 8 rounds. Extremely consistent as the Moonshiners Racing Club driver, and could he potentially usurp everybody? If he took a win, he would definitely bring himself right towards the front right at the end, given he only stands 20 points behind 2nd place. But in turn behind him by a grand total of 32 points is Jack Giles. Indeed, the wonder weapon driver from Eurotitans Endurance, and the Briton right now, 2 wins in a 2nd, but last time out to 5th place. He definitely needs to get a bit more consistency on the board, but should he do so, he could yet steal the crown away from everybody. Rob Gregg sits in 5th place. He cannot, in theory, take on the championship crown unless all of the top 4 completely squander their points between now and the end of the season. But you never know, to be fair, for the Moonshiners Racing Club driver. Miracles can happen, and he'd just like to make it a 2nd podium this season if he can, as he sits ahead of a Ross Gillett, who continues to move forward, now into 6th place of 341 points, and just 2 ahead of Andy Chell for Quetmass Motorsport, who did not finish in the top 10 last time out, indeed struggling from 18th place to 14th, but the battle goes on. Michael Salcuni, meanwhile, sits in 8th there for Rhino Esport for Edge Overlays, and well, after missing the previous 2 rounds, well, that win that he left us with, well, he was very happy with that, and can he make it a 2nd win today? And if so, the Italian driver could steal some very valuable points away from those at the front and make his way towards the top 5. Danny Weir sits in 9th place, meanwhile, a very frustrating day at Daytona, that non-finish, completely scuppering a chance for a podium, and Dexterous Motorsport Sandra will be looking more towards the team's championship now, with Simon Hunt completing your top 10 there for the Quatermass Motorsport team on 264 points apiece with Danny Weir, but it's a result countback that makes the difference. Denny Ploger sits a further 9 points behind for Moonshiners Racing Club, the Dutchman, having 2 top 10s in a row. Can he make it a 3rd today? And James Fraser, what could have been at Daytona if not for the wrong fuel going in the car in the race? Well, we'll never know, but what we do know is he'll be looking for retribution today. But as for your team's championship standing, here we can see it's Moonshiners Racing Club bootleggers who lead the way, and they lead currently with a slightly improved lead there of 1,494 points to 1,397 of Dexter Sports Magenta, or in other words, a grand total of 97 points of the difference. However, with these margins right now, they are tantalisingly tight. Indeed, when you do consider there's a maximum point score available today of 200, given it's the fact it's always the top 2 scores of each driver in the teams, well, understandably, what it does mean is that we could potentially see the scores drawn completely even going into the season finale, the undroppable round at Suzuka. So therefore, it's a battle between the top 2, and it's a battle for 3rd between Moonshiners Racing Club Rebels and Dexterous Motorsport Cyan. The 2 teams separated by only 80 points, and it's a further approximately 60 adrift there, or 62 to be precise, for Dark Wing Racing. And the combination of Lewis Hammond and Michael Rhodes continue to impress, and they are closing on 3rd and 4th place rather rapidly indeed. In 6th from 1,042, there's none other than the SimRacing Collective Esports 1, and the team on the rebound, now only 11 points away from the trophy spots. Could we see a late charge them to make it towards the top 3? Because they'll have behind them the late charges as well of Chaps Motorsport, who've gone from 9th to 7th, and their form continues to rise them up through the ranks. And Eurotitans Endurance have slipped back by comparison. We have a bit of difficulty last time out at Daytona. They've gone from 7th to 8th place with 114 points. Next, a further 90 to NJP Performance, who has slipped from 8th to 9th, and they are continuing to slip backwards and may be at risk of one outside the top 10 today if their results in Split A do not go their way. And then we do have SimRacing Team Lowlands, who remain 10th. This is all due to the efforts of Mark DeVries, although Menno Blown returning today, and both drivers out there You can imagine this could be a golden opportunity for the team to have one last hurrah, and how close can they get to the top 5 before the season is done. Outside the top 10, we can't quite show it on screen, of course. In 11th place is GPX SimSport Xenon. They remain in 11th place coming into this round and are still trying to break back into the top 10, but they have Axis SimSport with SimWorks only 7 points behind them. But it's a sizable gap between them and the top 10, and therefore right now we do seem to have our main top 10 teams here, and it's going to require a big drop for many of these teams to see a new team take a spot off of them going into the season finale. But with that, let's talk a little bit about host circuit. It is the Red Bull Ring's Grand Prix circuit, located in the town of Spielberg in the Bezirk-Murtau district of the Styrian region, Austria. 2.68 miles in length for 4.31 kilometers. But regardless of the units you use, the number of corners stays the same. 10 of them in total, and a huge thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but the absolutely fantastic track maps contained within it. And we can see here, two-dimensional image. It doesn't quite bring to life the elevation changes of the circuit, but it definitely shows you that first half a lap, turns 1 through to 4, dominated by straight and heavy braking zones, and it's turns 5 all the way through to 10, which focus more on the medium speed apexes and the off-camber corners with it. So therefore for our drivers, there's going to be plenty of battles on the straights, plenty of battles on the braking, but also confidence tests through the corners. And rather than try to talk you through a lap here using the two-dimensional image, we'll jump on board with a driver or two in qualifying to take you through the exact story of how you deliver a lap here at the Red Bull Ring. So without further ado, let's make our way back to circuit side and see how our driver's getting on with the best part of half the qualifying session remaining of the day. And as we do come back to circuit side, we'll drive us out there right now, all pushing as hard as possible for pole as we come back dead on the dot with 15 minutes to go. We couldn't have timed that perfect. And as we do see Jack Giles make his round around, he's not the quickest of your club drivers out there at the moment. That is for certainty. He currently sits there 19th overall, a 6th in class. The fastest club driver at the moment is Rob Gregg. Now we do know that Rob has been working very hard in his qualifying performances over the last few rounds. It has been seen as one of his weaknesses for this season. He is pushing on, and indeed the push right now looking good, and he's being totaled on there by Ashley Shucksmith. So Shucksmith, I think, sacrificed a bit of his own laps to help Rob Gregg out here. Is there a bit of teamwork in the pipeline here for MRC, or Moonshine's Racing Club, we should say, because there is an MRC racing team as well at SimRacing International. Let's not get the two confused. And Rob Gregg improves to 6th place overall, a 29.791, as Ashley Shucksmith there decides to make the full sacrifice, goes to spin out of turn 1, and parks up in the grass then. He'll be towing to the pit lane, if not reversing the car shortly. Oh, goodness me, and that is going to be none other than Jelmer Bergsma make his way around. I was just about to compliment the livery on the car, and he's gone for a big spin there, sideways into the gravel trap at Roush Corner at turn number 4. Not the way you wanted to go whatsoever, particularly if you're a Jelmer Bergsma fan, as he currently sits in 22nd or 16th in the Premier Class. But as he takes the escape road there, doing it the correct way to rejoin, because he does find what is the grass rather than the gravel trap to rejoin. Well, let's talk about the driver who's currently the fastest in the Premier Class and overall, and it is James Haworth. Well, he's back, and he's back with a bang today. After returning from his holiday, he missed the racing at Daytona. He was on holiday and he was playing golf. And I'll tell you one thing, it was definitely an impressive set of performances when he showed some of the video clips of him teed off. And well, today, will he be putting on a performance that's above par? Will he be going for an eagle or a birdie? Or will he, instead of flying, will he end up finding himself in a bit of a bogey situation? And find himself more in the rough, perhaps, rather than on the tarmac. I'm going to put the golf puns away now before I get clubbed by anybody out there who won't be enjoying the golf puns. And indeed, in fact, I think James Haworth there has actually heard them come through over the car Stanway system, and if so, he's not too impressed as he runs wide there through turn number 9. I apologise in advance, James, and indeed, hopefully, it has not gone all wrong there with regards to hearing those golf puns in your car. But as he makes way onwards, I'm sure he can't hear us at the moment. He is currently the fastest out there, and well, looking the quickest by the best part of a 10th at the moment versus championship leader and almost champion-elect of Liam Fraser. And as a reminder, all he needs to do today is bring on home what would be a 10th place finish or higher, and he would have the job done. But a new livery on the car there for the Moonshine's Racing Club driver, and I get the feeling that is a tribute livery there to the original Blues Brothers movie. If anybody remembers that, well, if so, then Liam Fraser surely feels as though he's on a mission from God today. That definitely gives me Blues Brothers vibes, and that gives me Blues Brothers movie vibes for cop cars crashing, albeit they drove, of course, a decommissioned cop car. And well, the Blues Brothers movie, if you only watched it for one thing, you watched it for the final 20 minutes of the movie, where you essentially had all the police cars crashing and so many police cars being thrown into scenes. It was absolutely ludicrous. And also, of course, I should throw in there flying fascists as well, but we're not going to go on to that any further. I'm not going to spoil it for you. If you've never seen the movie, check it out for the final 20 minutes, if nothing else. But it is a good movie in its own right. But as Liam Fraser makes one around right now, well, definitely he's going to be thinking as though he's got to pick himself up, much like Dan Aykroyd did in his career when he was part of the Blues Brothers acting group. And as we do see Liam Fraser make his way backwards tarmac right now, he's got a bit more work to do. But speaking of things we should do, we need need to say hello to a few of you there in the YouTube chat. And we do say hello to Mark Kent there, and we say good evening to Mark, and I hope you're doing well, Mark. Also to Chantel Ploger, cheering on Denny Ploger, of course. And I do believe we have Denny back here today, unless I'm mistaken. And I think the answer to that question is going to be yes. We're just trying to find him out on circuit at the moment, and I'm sure we'll find him in due course. And he's currently not in the car, he's in the pit lane, out of the car. Perhaps he knows we're trying to get an on-board lap with him and decide to hide himself, because we naturally segue over to saying hello to Andy Rooney there, or Alera 2007, who says, go to board for quali, rest in pieces whoever I pick here in the commentary booth. And indeed, this has become a running trope of ride on board with drivers for qualifying sessions, and the fact that, well, I think it was last time at Daytona, we tried to ride on board with 3 different drivers, and all 3 drivers ended up botching their laps at some point. You could not make it up. It was not scripted, I can promise you that. As we also say hello there to none other than Katie Eaves, who says good luck to Mikel Salcuni tonight. And here we do have Salcuni back here after missing the last couple of rounds. Good to see him back in the Verano Esports with Edge Overlays Ferrari. Looking beautiful, that car. That livery absolutely stands out, to be fair. And again, I have no favourites with regards to liveries. The fact that we have to really complement the wide variety of liveries, that everyone really bringing a unique livery to the grid in each and every car. But the thing that I really appreciate about what all of our teams and their livery designers have done, you can tell whereby the livery designers haven't just been told, go make me a livery and put it on the car. They've actually stepped back and realised, okay, how do you get a livery to actually flow with the contours of the car? Particularly cars like the Ferrari 296, not easy cars to design a livery for, because they are so aerodynamically streamlined. You can see all the yellow markings there on the Verano Esports livery with the base blue background, all flying with the contours of the bodywork, and that's what makes these liveries so fantastic for every driver out there. Same with Peter Florian's car, of course. A livery which is an offshoot, I do believe, of the Porsche manufacturer livery for going GT3 Racing and also GT Racing, with a slight tweak to it there for the prototype outfit from RR Racing. And we're going very sideways. He makes his... Whoa! Goodness me! And that was sideways, and it went sideways even faster. That was Barry Wenman, who came careening into the seat of the situation with Peter Florian. And, well, the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver is going to have to go back to the pit lane and get that car repaired. Thankfully, you'll be able to do so quite quickly. Now, some of you may be sat there wondering, you said about mixed conditions, Paul. What exactly is the weather looking like today? Well, what I can tell you is we're not expecting any rain until we go racing. So we've had no rainfall in the build-up to today, none in practice. There'll be none happening in qualifying. We run timeline weather as well, just to be clear for the uninitiated, which means the weather is set. It's not on a forecast. We do actually script the weather. However, there's always a bit of variance in the weather that iRacing introduces, particularly around the timeline. So we say that rain is going to arrive 10 minutes into a race. It can arrive a little bit earlier, it can arrive a little bit later, but typically earlier sometimes, as Michael Rhodes there gets it wrong at turn number 5 as well, turn number 6 as well. A lot of drivers getting it wrong through there. I wonder if potentially grip levels are dropping, and that's because we have seen the circuit cool a little bit compared to practice, as cloud has come over the circuit rather than having stellar sunshine on it. But I digress. And stay on the theme of the weather, we have light rain expected to arrive around about 5 to 10 minutes into the race, and then the rain will go away quite quickly. So it's only expected to last around about 15 to 20 minutes, the rain, and then the final half an hour of the race, it is very likely to be a continuation of sunny conditions and the circuit will dry up. But what it will mean is that we will expect drivers to have to go from slicks to wet tyres at some point. Maybe there might be some drivers out there who gamble starting the wet tyre, but if so, they've got to survive anywhere between 5 to 10 minutes on the wet tyre before the rain falls, and that's going to be a very hard proposition because the wet tyre will overheat very quickly. To see what's going to happen. But as we do the see their Daytona Nation, who says staying domination, that's none other than James Haworth there, who says hello in the YouTube chat. He's out the car there, he thinks he's got the job done as he parks up. Well, good to see you back, James. Fantastic to have you here once again. Well, we also do need to talk about a couple of drivers who are not here today, including none other than what I do believe Steve Rubino. Unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, can't make the trip to Austria, and therefore will be returning for the season finale at Suzuka. So we unfortunately miss our Hobo Racing gentleman in the club class, his Ford Mustang. We also do have the absence of Marcus Clayton, the other member of the Verano Esports crew, and this is due to work commitments. He'll not be on the grid in the club class for the rest of the season, but hopes to be back in full time for season 14. And so we do wish Marcus all the best. A big thank you to him, of course, for being on the grid for this season. Perhaps not having the happiest of seasons. He has a bit of bad luck. He's also had some great heroics out there, and well, we hope to see him back in season 14. He's definitely been one of our stars, and we always do miss a driver when they can't make a particular round. But as all our drivers continue the way on around right now, well, meanwhile, we do need to talk a little bit about Max 16. The Gavmax Racing driver, who are currently down in 29th place. Still trying to find a bit more time out there. But the Gavmax Racing machinery, that McLaren, in 11th currently in the club class. And, well, following after the Chaps Motorsport car there of Govind Suresh, who has been struggling a little bit in the build-up to today with regards to practicing at the Red Bull Ring. Find it a very difficult circuit to get to grips with. A lot of drivers have actually said this is a much harder circuit now because of the changing or the remodelling of the circuit to introduce 3D curbs, particularly in the opening couple of corners of the lap, where previously they were more two-dimensional, so you could really abuse the curbs. You can no longer get away with it, particularly with a lot of the curbs ended up being followed up by a sausage curb on their exit, and if you end up straddling that, you can bottom out the car very quickly, and also it's a breach track limits. As all the drivers make the way around. Well, one driver who's definitely doing very well at the moment is Ellen Olsen, albeit she's out the car in the pit lane, and she's currently second fastest, as we do see Ellen leaving the pit box for Fidelity TV Racing and making her way onwards at the moment, still chasing that first win of the season, but right now only 7.5 hundredths off of provisional pole to James Haworth, and our Porsche 911 driver definitely looking rapid, or should we say the Porsche 992 driver. She's absolutely blazing quick in the rear engine rear wheel drive machine. Now, why would the Porsche perhaps be quick here? Well, keeping in mind, of course, the Porsche is the best of the corners. It has got all the weight over the rear axle, so coming out of these opening hairpins, it's going to be a very powerful car, and if you do shave off a little bit of wing on the car, we're able to gain a bit more straight line speed. Plus, for the medium speed corners, it's naturally going to have a lot more stability over the rear, and I think that's what Ellen Olsen is going for here and pushing onwards. But as all drivers head on through, well, right now, absolutely pushing on as much as possible. And we, I think, do need to get an on-board lap or two with our drivers now. And, well, apologies, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully we don't put a curse on anyone, as we are going to jump on board here with Scott Kostrich as he weaves his way down the start for this straight. And, in fact, well, I wonder if that is going to be the equivalent of putting garlic out for a vampire, because I think that's going to essentially abort his lap, and I think he's still getting himself ready for another one. So we'll leave Scott Kostrich for now. So he survives the on-board, as we, well, who else can we go to then? And the answer is, I'm just waiting for somebody else to make their way towards the end of the lap at the moment. And I would say Ellen Olsen, which is still warming up. Andy Chell makes his way into the final corner. Let's jump on board with the Quackmass Motorsport driver, who looks to try and move his way up from 34th overall. So here he goes up towards the timeline, the Aston Martin V8 Vantage Evo, the car recently introduced to iRacing a couple of seasons ago. Breaking his way then in towards the opening bend and through that right-hander, braking about centimetres from corner apex, down to second gear, and now powers his way all the way up towards turn number 3. Now, so you may be wondering, why do we call it turn 3? Well, because he makes his way for this left-hand kink. This is where the MotoGP chicane is for motorcycle racing, which always leads to a good argument over the dinner table in a motorsport family as to whether there's 9 or 10 corners here at the Red Bull Ring. But Chell braking there about 120 metres from corner apex at AG bend, and now making his way down towards turn number 4. But as he does so, I think he'll realise he broke a bit too soon there for the turn 3 hairpin, and he's got more space to work with. He can brake a lot later uphill. But braking downhill into Roush Bend, here he has to brake early. He has to brake about 150 metres from corner apex, but it's all downhill. The corner falls away from you as a driver, as he now completes the first half lap and goes into the second half. Going up towards Power Horse curve then, and as he does so, going through the extended right in towards the left-hander of Power Horse, and here's a corner where the apex just drops away from you. Off-camber as you clear the apex, and now down towards turn number 7. And braking downhill here into a corner that flattens out at the apex, so you're essentially doing a little bit of understeer that's invoked on entry, and you've got to balance the car, but if you can keep the pace on through, and now make his way through turn number 8 up towards Jochen Rindt Bend at turn number 9, named after, of course, the home hero of motorsport, particularly in Formula 1, where he brakes at the 50 board right by the marshal's post, and now comes down towards A1 ring corner to complete lap before doing it all over again. But it has been a smooth lap from Andy Chell, if nothing else, and he has improved slightly, but how far will he go? Well, let's find out as he crosses the timing line. And he does not improve this time around, so Chell's still got a bit more time to find, but he does survive the curse of an on-board lap there. Well done to him for doing so, but as he makes his way on around right now, he's got a bit more work to do if he wants to move onwards. Now, we have no penalties to talk about here coming into this round today, I believe. Well, we are just going to mute our microphone briefly. I just need to cough, ladies and gentlemen, and, well, we don't want to deafen your ears for that. And there we go, and I almost accidentally pushed the wrong button there, not to mute the microphone, but made sure to do that in the right nick of time. And now, as we do see Andy Chell make his way onwards, well, cough expired there. I think I might need to take a Strepsil later on, but as Chell heads onwards, meanwhile, at the top of the field, well, James Haworth is out there right in front of Chell, and right now I think he's feeling as though there's a bit more time to be found. And if so, what is he thinking here? How high can he go? As Alan Olsen seems to be posing a bit of a threat. Liam Fraser right now currently third, and World Champion-elect here hoping that potentially he can get himself onto that front row. He'd like to seal the deal, I suspect, with 6th win of the season, but you can't get too greedy in this situation. Sometimes perhaps you've got to sit in there and think to yourself, give it your best, but remember, you don't need to win today. But the only problem with Liam Fraser, like many a racing driver, not many of them can switch their mindset off of I need to win every race, because if I'm not winning, why am I racing? And indeed, that's a bit epidemic there in the mental cycle. You do get those drivers who are a bit more Colin Turkington-esque, if you will, or Alan Prost-esque, who really play the numbers game by comparison. But that's not easy to do, because you've really got to resist urges and temptation when you take an approach like that. But as we do see Ellen Olsen making her way out of the final corner, here she goes for a flyer, and we jump aboard then for what is most likely her penultimate flying lap. And then up towards turn number 1. Full attack, here we go with the Flynn TV racing driver, braking around about 80 metres from corner apex, down to second gear, and stamp the throttle immediately as she rides the sausage curve there, keeps 2 wheels in the white lines. Absolutely perfect from Olsen as she now makes her way up towards turn number 3. Heading uphill at this point, let's see how late she can brake into AMS AEG. She'll look to her left-hand side for a brake marker. I suspect it'll be the 100 board. And braking there after the 100 board, about 90 metres from corner apex, down to first gear, slamming it down the gearbox. And well, Menno Blome's improved to a 29.299. Where on earth has that come from for the SimRacing Team Lowlands driver? We stay on board with Ellen Olsen, now known she's in third, 2.5 tenths off of Blome's pole time. Here she comes down into Roush Bend, braking then, and as she does so, we'll braking at the 100 metre board, trying to go as late as possible, just a little wobble under braking there. That shows you she's absolutely on the limit as she mounts the exit curve, runs it out wide, but right now still in track limits as she goes in towards Powerhouse Bend, braking at the 50 board, and going through the long left-hander that never seems to arrive, and it finally does, and now down the hill using all the runoff area there to open up turn number 7. You've got to be careful, of course, the more you use it, the more marbles you pick up on the right-hand side tires, the less grip you have on turning. But she mounts the curve there, battling with what is a scrape out from the bottom of the car versus the turn 8 curb. And now going up towards turn number 9, and as she does so, braking there just before the 50 board, all the way down to third, getting mounted the curve to push the car through the corner, in towards A1 ring bend to complete the lap. What's it going to be for Olsen? It's not been the perfect lap, it's been a bit scrappy at certain points, but she's been absolutely on the limit. You can't falter for it, and she heads towards the timeline, where she's going to cross line with literally a second to spare, and Olsen does not improve. She's got one more go at this, but she'll be the very last driver then to set a lap in this qualifying session if she can improve. But meanwhile, more drivers out there at the moment. Mark de Vries trying to see if he can put himself on the front row alongside Menno Blome. And where's he going to be able to do so? The answer we'll have to see, as he titter-tattles his way up through turn 7 in towards 8. And as he does so there, that BMW looking absolutely composed, no doubt about it. It's James Haworth in the pit lane, Liam Fraser in the pit lane, Menno Blome in. So Ellen Olsen, the only one inside that top 4 who can improve. But Mark de Vries right now, making his way on through. He hasn't improved in sectors 1 and 2. And we're coming through the final right-hander here of A1 ring. What's it going to be this time as he mounts that curve? The BMW gets a bit unsettled, and the answer is going to be, well, it is going to be no improvement there for Mark de Vries. But off camera, we should point out that Joshua Downing is now your provisional pole sitter in the club class, ahead of Rob Gregg by only a grand total of 25 thousandths. And James Fraser heads towards line here. Simon Hunt just in front of him is about to improve by the looks of things, with 2 sectors improved. But does he go higher? No, he does not. In fact, I think Simon Hunt invalidates his lap. James Fraser does improve. That takes him to 7th place in the club class there at 30.385. A respectable lap from him. And, well, up towards the parking zone he goes. But as he does so, well, meanwhile, we see Adam Waters make his way on through. He's going to be one of the very last tries to set a lap. Ellen Olsen, I believe, has retired from her lap. She retired with only a couple of corners left to go, so decided not to push it any further. And Adam Waters comes on through and does not improve. So that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. Now to our 38 drives. 2 drives did not set times. Gavin Corby and Paul Maffey. 36 did. And it is Menno Blome who takes pole position here at the Red Bull Ring, and does so by the best part of almost 2 attempts ahead of James Haworth. Ellen Olsen and Liam Fraser will line up together on row number 2, and row number 3 will go to Mark de Vries and Barry Wenman. And then we will see the runner Premier drives ended in 7th place by Scott Kostrich, and then only the best part of what's a further 10th behind, Joshua Downing returns to the top step of the qualifying grid for the club class, taking 8th and with a club pole position. But Rob Gregg in the end denied pole position, what would have been his maiden pole position of the season in club, but still takes one of his season best qualifying performances there with 2nd place, 9th overall. And then you've got Martin Keane and Ryan Abbott between them, and then the rest of the top 5 in club, which consists of Michael Rhodes, also then none other than Mikhail Salcuni and Christo Petty. But there's keys us up for a very nice battle in the club class in particular, and we have got some of the big names there right in the thick of it, although not Ashley Shucksmith, it's worth noticing, and also then none other and an absence in that group of Jack Giles. So therefore, that could definitely put them on a bit of a back foot, but we'll have to wait and see which way it goes. But Joshua Downing definitely getting the job done there as we head into the 5-minute warm-up session. So of course, it's an opportunity for our drivers to take a bit of a breather, take a comfort break, get the right setup on the car, alternatively decide to essentially rehydrate. As we do say hello there to Barry Racing, Jonathan Barry, and well, saying let's go Josh, cheering on Joshua Downing, I do believe, and also saying he's racing at Alton Park this weekend. And hello to you, John. Hope you're doing well, and well, it's good to hear from you once again. And for those of you not in the know, Jonathan Berry does race, and I do believe, you'll have to correct me if I get this wrong, it's an Alfa Romeo Quadrifoglio, I believe it's the 4-door sedan, if you will, or saloon as we refer to them in the United Kingdom, but he races in it as part of the GT Cup series, I want to say. Indeed, I'm having to do this completely off memory and not scripted this, so you have to help me out a little bit, but I do believe that's correct, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, John. But either way, we look forward to seeing how you get on this weekend, because you've definitely been taking a car that's not conventionally raced in the United Kingdom and pushing it to the limit. Indeed, you caught the eyes of a few photographers, I can definitely tell you that, which is always a good sign. As well, Greg makes his way on around. Well, what can he expect in the race here? How important is qualifying? And indeed, what is going to be the trajectory of this race? Is it a strategic one? Is it one where you can have an absolute blitz and a battle on the circuit? Well, the good news of the Red Bull Ring, as you may have noticed with the amount of road width you have and also nature of the corners, this is a circuit we can overtake at every single corner in theory, and therefore you can have a good battle. The only thing is, of course, battling will always cost you a lot of time, and therefore perhaps winning on strategy can be just as potent. With the thing around here is to save fuel and manage tyres, or fuel saving in particular, it's not really slipstream based, instead you have to do it through lift and coast typically, and tyre management will be through short shifting and also just making sure you're not too aggressive on the tyres in some of the heavier braking zones and the more leaning corners in the second half of the lap. So therefore this is definitely one of those circuits whereby even if you haven't put yourself in pole position, you may still be able to spring some surprises and come charging through the field. And what I do see Barry Racing the same, it's the Veloce, the 2 litre, not the 2.9 litre Quadrifoglio, which Josh Downing drives in real life, and it's the only one racing Veloce in the world. So Jonathan Berry there, being the only Alfa Romeo Veloce car racing in the world currently, and well, absolutely stellar. I do believe it's actually picked up quite a bit of a fan following as well on the Alfa Romeo forums and Facebook groups. And well, as the drivers all head on through, sadly we have no Alfa Romeo race car here in iRacing. The closest thing you technically have is a Ferrari, such as the Ferrari 296 that Rob Gregg is driving. And there's a bit of an interesting history with regards to Ferrari and Alfa Romeo, in the fact that also Fiat out there, all the Italian companies at one time all being linked together, particularly something that Ferrari don't really want to talk about in their history. At one point, Ferrari was owned by Fiat. They were a subsidiary of Fiat, and you may have noticed if you looked very closely, if you followed Formula 1, particularly in the 2000s period, if you looked at the nose cone, you would have seen just underneath the Ferrari logo was a very small Fiat logo. In reference to the fact Ferrari was owned by Fiat, when Ferrari bought themselves out from Fiat towards the end of the 2000s, I believe it happened in 2009, that is when they removed the Fiat logo from the cars, because they were no longer required to say that they were part of the Fiat conglomerate. So a little bit of trivia pursuit there, history, if you're ever curious. All the drivers make the way on around. Well, right now we do need to give a big shout out, of course, to Connor Pink, albeit he's not in the car. And Connor Pink there, you can see, driving for a new team as a privateer for the remainder of the season. And well, he's not in the car, so we don't see the livery, but we do see there's logo and also his new outfit, and that is for Droga Racing, and indeed in reference to a Norse mythology. And we wish Connor all the best as he joins a new team, a team that is very likely to join the grid in what is season 14. And we can't wait for that, but of course to get to season 14 we must complete season 13, and we're in no hurry to do so because this season has been absolutely epic and we've still got a bit more time to go. As all drivers, we even wind the way on around right now. Well, we're not too far away from going green. And just a reminder on the weather. We are expecting rain to arrive sometime around 5 to 10 minutes into the race, and it is expected to last approximately 15 to 20 minutes. It's light rain, however, we do know on iRacing light rain typically means it is going to be a circuit that gradually becomes quite saturated, so there's a very high chance the wet tyre is going to be needed. Well, there's pretty much a definite chance, but what do you do as a driver? Do you all start on the slick and then see who can survive the longest on the slick tyres time till they need to transition to the wet? Or as soon as the first drop of rain falls, do you straight away go to that wet tyre? Or do you start at a wet tyre and pretty much risk it all? Well, we'll have to see how drivers are going to approach it. Indeed, this could be a very unpredictable race in reality. And James Haworth, the man who will be starting on what will be the front row alongside Menno Bloem, well, can he find a way to usurp the BMW M4 driver? Well, we'll soon find out, because it's time to head to the grid, ladies and gentlemen. It is time for round number 9 of season 13 of the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship to get underway here on iRacing, and all hosted today at the Red Bull Ring Grand Prix circuit in Austria. And so as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for their one and only race today in round number 9 of the championship for Split B. Taking pole position overall and in Premier, it's going to be Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Loans, who returns to the racing, and what a way to return, creeping onto pole position right at the end, but doing it by almost 2 attempts ahead of Dexterous Motorsport Science James Haworth, who in the end I think might have been a bit speechless by that one. Starting third on the grid, her best qualifying points of the season so far, for TV Racing's Ellen Olsen, and the Dutch lady are definitely looking rapid out there in the Porsche 992. Then we do have alongside her Liam Fraser of Moonshiners Racing Club Bootleggers, almost champion-elect. All we need is 10th or higher today in the Premier class, and he will be your champion guaranteed going into the season finale. Mark Terry starts 5th for SimRacing Team Loans. Couldn't quite emulate the results and performance of his teammate, but starting 5th on that third row, there's a good way he can go. And Barry Wenman will join him on that third row for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta. 7th on the grid will be Scott Koshik for GPX SimSport Xenon, the Scotsman, then being joined by your club pole sitter of Joshua Downing for Type 2 Racing, who I think will be absolutely ecstatic to have taken that pole position by 25 thousandths ahead of Rob Gregg, and the Moonshiners Racing Club Rebels driver being forced to start second. Not quite his maiden pole position of the season, indeed his career, I do believe. Rob Gregg's never had a pole position in qualifying. A qualifying session, we should clarify, but right now the English driver will be eager to move forward from second place in club. Martin Kenyon completes the top 10 for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta, and outside that top 10 in 11th place, it's going to be Ryan Abbott's for Team Nubish. They get the formation app underway. Mark Rose joins him on that 6th row grid for Darkwing Racing, and then we do see starting 13th, Mikhail Salcuni for Rano Esports. Salcuni having a decent qualifying performance there. Third on the grid, fourth on the grid we should say for the club drivers, but this will be the third effective row they're all on, because Krista Petty will join him there. 7th row of the grid, and that'll be the Moonshiners Racing Club Bootleggers driver who completes the top 5 of the club class. 15th on the grid is going to be Hussein Sarkadessa for Scuderia GPX, and joined by Matthew Massey for Spectre Racing. Then we do have Ross Wheatley for DC Motorsport ahead of Chaps Motorsport's Govind Suresh. Rob Mackay and Dave Collier for Dexterous Motorsport Cyan and DC Motorsport complete your top 20. And outside the top 20, 21st on the grid, it's going to be Denny Ploger for Moonshiners Racing Club Rebels. He'll be 6th of your club starters in the company of James Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, who had some late improvements in qualifying to put him 7th. Then 23rd on the grid, it's Peter Florian, the privateer from Czechia, ahead of Ashley Shucksmith for Moonshiners Racing Club Bootleggers. He's making a habit of starting towards the back end of the top 10 in club and then arriving on the podium. And, well, I can tell you one thing, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Although Shucksmith, I think, will be wanting to qualify high at Suzuka next time. But let's see if he can work some magic today in the 222. Jack Giles starts behind him there. That's a shock for the Eurotyres Insurance Pink driver, only managing 25th overall. And what translates, unfortunately for him, right to the back end of the top 10 in club, ahead of Josh Holmes for Team Yorkshire T. And then we do see started 27th. It's going to be Yelmer Bergsma for Lewis Homewood Racing. Head of Pete Paver there for LS Racing 1. The Brazilian will be followed up by Jordan Butler for Spectre Racing and Danny Weir for Dexterous Motorsport Cyan. Danny Weir having difficulty qualifying as well. Then 31st on the grid, it's going to be Gav Max Racing's Max Dean ahead of Simon Hunt for Quainthouse Motorsport, with Martin Brandon for Axis SimSports with Simworks starting 33rd on the grid ahead of Andy Chell for Quainthouse Motorsport. Now it'll be Adam Waters for Team Nubish, ahead of Connor Pink for Droga Racing. They'll be the ones who set lap times 36th downwards. And then we do see what is 37th on the grid, Gavin Corby for Gav Max Racing, ahead of Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing, who completes the starting order of 38 drivers. Now, we do have a few drivers who've opted to start from the pit lane here, and we also have a few who have decided to put wet tyres on the car. And, well, this is definitely added a lot of intrigue at the moment. We can tell you that Liam Fraser's on wet tyres, also Rob Gregg, Christopher Petty, Matthew Massey, Govind Suresh, and also Denny Ploger and James Fraser amongst others. So not everyone started on slicks here. Some are gambling that they'll be able to survive on the wet tyres until the rain arrives. Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, to find out which way is the right way to go, because Menno Bloem will take us away for 60 minutes of racing action here at the Red Bull Ring. And it is go, go, go for round number 9 of Split Beast Championship as they roar the way out towards turn number 1. Miller blowing with a decent start there, but James Haworth almost beat him into that braking zone as Ellen Olsen covers off the inside. All the drivers coming through there, 2 abreast for the majority of them. We see a bit of a check up there as Mikkel Salkuni safely on through the opening corner. Actually, Shucksmith there going very wide, and in doing so, it's going to yield a lot of places, but they're all through turn number 1. But back to the front of the field we go, and here comes Haworth looking around the outside, and Miller blowing up towards turn number 3. Onto the brakes. Blome's got the inside line, Haworth. Surely he'll hold on here, but Haworth can't find a way all the way round as all the field now constant as its way under braking. But again, everyone being quite sensible here at the start. A couple of free wides there, but no contact between drivers. Everyone very cognizant of where they need to be, and the racing carries on. Although we've had one spinner, I think that's Jack Giles, unfortunately, who's got around. And for Jack Giles, it goes from good to bad to disaster within the opening minute. As men have blown, James Haworth and Ellen Olsen are already putting away Mark De Vries right now, making a move down. Barry Wenman moving up into 4th place as Wenman falling down, and Liam Fraser struggling right now on wet tyres out there, understandably starting on the wet compound. This has not helped him at all. We show you those tyre compounds on the time on the left hand side of your screen, and well, right now the MLC bootlegger's driver's got to try and survive. He's got to really protect that tyre because he's ripping the tread blocks off of it every corner he takes at the moment. That tyre will be getting very hot and he can't cool it down. But will this work out for him? Because of course the fact tyre changes, they are done after fuel now in the pit stops, and therefore that will cost you a grand total of 30 seconds on top of your base pit stop to change all the tyres, if not 25. But your leaders make the way towards the end of lap number 1. Menno Blum continues to lead then, but he runs very wide there coming out A1 ring corner. Is that an off track? Yes. Is it a slowdown penalty? No, as he weaves his way up towards turn number 1. But after one lap, it's Menno Blum who leads at James Haworth and Ellen Olsen. Then you've got a 1.7 second gap back to Mark De Vries. 4th place ahead of Barry Wenman. Scott Kostrich is 6th ahead of Joshua Downing. Club leader in 7th. Martin Kenyon 8th. Michael Rhodes in 9th place. And then Mikkel Salkuni completes the top 3 of club and 10th with it. And as we can see just behind there, there's Liam Fraser all over the back of Salkuni. But meanwhile, fanning out, there's Hussein Salkades who's come charging up the field. Ryan Abbott's there as well. Ryan Abbott's really getting going in this one. But in the foreground of the camera shot, Martin Kenyon up the inside of Joshua Dowding trying to clear the club leader. The Dowding's made to go wide, and Michael Rhodes immediately now attacking his closest rival in the championship. So Rhodes here has made some early progress, going on the offensive. But is he going to find himself going on the inside here in towards Ralph Spend, or does he back off? And the answer is he takes it easy, doesn't go for the move, and just waits his turn. Further back down the order there, we do see Jordan Butler attacking Jelmer Bergsma. And the reason why I'm getting flashbacks to Jelmer Bergsma's livery is because that's reminded me, if anybody remembers the Aston Martin DBR9 GT1, the original, I do believe, 007 car that raced at Le Mans. Well, that livery is very similar to one that was raced under the Golf colours all those many years ago. Looking up the inside there of Matthew Massey to hold position, as Jordan Butler's forced backwards there, although Matthew Massey battling with Spectre Racing teammate at the moment of Butler. The two of them going for a bit of a civil war here, and meanwhile that's poor old Christophe Petty just being made to go wide. Petty on the wet tyre and having to take it easy here, cannot go quick at all as that tyre is getting extremely hot. But I do see a number of you saying there that here comes the rain, and well, also drivers make the way on forward. Everyone still balance. There's the rain on our screen. So the rain does arrive, and as it does, very light at certain points of the circuit at the moment. The cameras may not always pick up the rain, to be fair, so just be aware of that, but they will soon, and the rain starts to fall on the circuit. So the wet weather tyre starters may now gain a significant advantage, and for the slick runners, it's how long can you hold on before you're forced to come to the wet tyre, or can you hold on long enough here, and how much time can you gain in the meantime? There will be a transition point, and that's what we'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile, we'll look back there to Scott Kostrich as he heads up into the braking zone, battling side by side still with Martin Kenyon, and as they make the way through, the GPX Simsport Xenon driver still too wide here as they come out the corner, and Joshua Down and Mikkel Salkuni together with them as they make the way on down. But rain definitely falling for the drivers here, as I say, not always being picked up by the cameras, but right now as they make the way on through, you can definitely see how things are getting close as Rhodes battling with side by side with Downing, getting ahead there into the braking zone, and the Darkwing Racing driver takes over lead of the club class, at least for now, as Mikkel Salkuni continues to watch on behind. But they're all slick runners at the moment. Wipers on for the drivers here as they make the way in towards that left-hander of turn number 6, Power Horse. And right now, all these drivers, I think, are going to be going for a test shortly of their ability to conquer the wet conditions, increasingly wet conditions, on a slick tyre. As Danny Weir looks up the inside of Rob Gregg, really going for it. But remember, Gregg's on the wet tyres, and soon he may start to get a bit of an advantage as Pete Paver tucks it behind. Paver looking up the inside, they're trying to use Weir as a doorway, and that works out perfectly for the Brazilian driver. He moves up to 5th place in the club class. But your highest place wet runner at the moment is Liam Fraser down 16th place, and into the pits comes Joshua Downing, and so does Mikkel Salkuni. So both coming in, and as they both do so at the moment, Well, both drivers there will likely go into the wet tyres. So this is going to cost them the best part of at least 30 seconds, we reckon, and that's going to hurt them massively as Michael Rhodes carries on. Martin Kenyon, he makes a move on. So Rhodes moving up another place, now up into 7th place overall, but we're starting to see the shuffles in the pit lane. Max Deedin, Simon Hunted as well, and those who gambled at starting on the slick tyre, well, this may be going to backfire them very soon, and those who took the wet, well, it has worked out massively. The rain arriving much earlier than anticipated, arriving only, 4 minutes into the race rather than the 5 to 10 that was predicted. Krista Petty right now trying to keep it together as they make their way onwards, and you can see there where there's a gradual mist descending over the camera, so that's where the rain is falling quite fine. As Paul Matthews started all the way from the back of the field in a 38th place. Well, right now the Phoenix Racing driver here is making some steady progress, but he's on the slick tyre. That's the only problem he's got, so all that progress may regress as we got Krista Petty battling with Govind Suresh. Two McLarens go in towards AMS AG, and then they both come out, but Matthew Massey pulls away from them in his Acura, and Govind Suresh gets ahead of the two McLarens there versus Petty as they head onwards. Mikhail Salkuni, he's come up behind Joshua Downing, so they've both had their pit stop, they've both got to the wet tyre, and well, now we can see there the fact that as the wet weather headlights go on as well, headlights are mandated to go on when there's enough water falling. The Verano eSport driver here backing off behind Downing, and right now these two have got to try and make up a lost ground as Joshua Downing goes very deep into the corner. Mikhail Salkuni most follows him, and Ellen Olsen makes her way into the pit lane. She's taken over the front of the field, and we didn't quite catch how she made the move, but James Haworth also made a blow. Barry Wenman, Mark DeVries, they're all piling into the pit lane, and so suddenly the shoes on the other foot here, they're all need to go to the wet weather tyre as quickly as they can. Scott Kostrich, meanwhile, decides that he's going to brave it a little bit longer as he makes his way onwards. And the GPX is what Zeller driver from Scotland, keeping his head down here as he makes his way in towards turn number 1. Martin Kenyon just behind. Right now, the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver seeing whether there's more time to be found on that slick tyre. He's braving it. Ross Wheatley on the inside there of Rob Mackay. So these two still fight each other as they head up towards turn number 3 again. But it's going to be Rob Mackay on the outside there who will have a bit more pace. He's got the longer stretch to drive up, so he will gain a couple of miles an hour versus Wheatley. But Wheatley on the inside here as they make the way onwards. You can see the spray contrails now coming off the back of the car, and with that, that's normally a sign you need to start considering going to the wet tyre. Those slick tyres will start to struggle. So all of a sudden, this man, Liam Fraser, well, he'll be absolutely pleased, given the fact that having started the wet tyre, this is now coming to his Josh Holmes, club leader, goes very deep now on the slick tyre coming through AMSAG, but still ahead of Daddy Weir just about. Josh Holmes for the first time this season leading a lap in the club class. And the team at Yorkshire T-Drive will be very happy with that. And the Mercedes he has struggled with all season long. Oh, you've got to be careful there, Josh. Don't touch the white lines, whatever you do. Albeit those white lines there, you want to use them when you are racing on a dry track, but on a wet track, no matter how wet it is, you never want to touch those white lines nor the curves, because water gathers there. They're less grippy by comparison compared to the rest of the tarmac in the dry, and in the wet the water essentially just slicks its way off of the painted curbing and also the painted lines, and suddenly offers zero grip, and the car will just simply slide around under braking and you lose traction for a moment, and that can be absolutely detrimental to your race. But a lot of drivers going to the wet tyre. Liam Fraser very happily started on it, right now to see which way this does all go. But so you may be wondering, how exactly did Ellen Olsen make her way in to the lead of the race? Well, this started on lap number 2, a move for Ellen Olsen, as we do see Josh Holmes and also, I believe, well no, Rob Gregg stays out. Danny Weir into the pit lane. Here's a quick replay of Ellen Olsen's brilliant opening couple of laps. And this was Olsen on lap number 2, the Flair TV racing driver, making a move straight away versus Menno Blome, was being passed there by James Haworth, so she decides to also squeeze a way through, and in the end getting the traction out the corner, and it was a drag race down towards turn number 4, of which she would eventually win it. And we saw on lap number 4, Ellen make the move as well for the lead of the race, and this was, well, in fact, it was a change earlier on the lap, so Olsen had gone very deep there, and well, lost the place, but took it back in the run up towards turn number 6, so they were battling side by side, and Olsen was never going to back out of this one, and that's how she was able to hold the place with the original move she made, and well, it was here coming up towards and turn number 3, and well, it's all the way around the outside, and in the end, under braking, well, went all the way around the houses and got it done. But there's been a bit of difficulty for Ellen Olsen, and this was on lap number 5, I believe. And well, what exactly happened to the Flair TV racing driver? She was making her way on around, and she came into pits. Oh, contact there with Paul Maffey's car, and in a big slide, but thankfully, she did not hit the barrier, but she was forced into pits. Now, she has crossed the pit line. It'll be curious as to whether that counts as an unsafe pit entry or not, but hopefully not for Olsen. That's the last thing we want to see, as the Flair TV racing driver lose that massively there after going to the wet tyres. Now, she's got even more work to do, and an innocent incident between her and Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing, but the Flair TV racing driver's got to get her head down and think to herself, I can still do this. Her work should just been made a lot harder. Now Scott Kostrich comes in as the last of our slick runners decide they can't stay on the slicks anymore. We also had a big, what is nightmare for Menno Blomit to see. He's got a meatball flag associated to him. Let's try and find out what's happened there. Scott Kostrich in, and Liam Fraser passes Martin Kenyans into the pit lane, and so Liam Fraser takes the effective lead of this race, and as he does so, well, look who's now your club leader in second overall. It's Rob Gregg. He also opted to start of the wet tyre, and those who started to the wet, they are now really reaping the rewards for it, because they have saved themselves a whole pit stop. And well, that's a huge amount of time being gained there. Rob Gregg up into the leader club ahead of Matthew Massey, who's currently second in Premier. Going stretch right behind, and you see James Fraser. And thank you there to Andy Reedy for confirming the YouTube chat. No pit entry penalty for Ellen Olsen. Thankfully, she wasn't sent that far down to the pit lane, because of course it can be very sensitive to the pit lane entry in iRacing, and they're very strict with the rules and regulations when it comes to what constitutes a safe pit entry versus what constitutes not safe. And well, thankfully that runoff tarpaulin there considered not to be a part of the consideration. But James Fraser carries on, second in club right now. We're ahead of Kristen Petty and Ashley Shucksmith, but can he close down Rob Gregg? Indeed, they'd like to make it a 1-2 at MRC Bootleggers. 30 MRC in general, but the only thing is right now for the second of the Blues brothers, well, I think he would like to take the win and make amends for what was the disaster at Daytona. But as Olsen carries it away, chasing after Jack Giles, well, she's not too far away from Barry Wenman and James Haworth, to be fair to her. So Felicity Racing Drive will just have to do it again. 5 seconds is the gap. Although, to be fair, that's not inspiring words to put it like that, but she'll gain a place down Jack Giles, who makes a ham sandwich out of turn number 4. And the Eurotizers Endurance Pink driver gets it a bit wrong, and now he'll look to try and get it right instead. As, oh, hold the phone, that's Matthew Massey into the gravel there. And Massey getting it wrong, coming into turn number 6, on the exit at least, going very wide. And, well, I think they just carried a bit too much speed. A few drivers getting it wrong, and, well, hopefully they won't all be getting it wrong here. We don't want to see too many drivers off the road. That's the last thing we want to see. But some of you may be wondering what happened in the first instance to what was Jack Giles at the start of the race. He was caught up in the lap 1 instant, the only instant we had on the open lap, and here it is, a replay of it. So this was Jack Giles at the start as he made his way up into AMS AG hairpin. As he did so there, and a bit of contact with Yelmer Bergsma by looks of things, and that loosened the car and sent it around as he tried to get the power down. So a tiny tap, and that was the story. This is what it looked like on board from Yelmer Bergsma's machine. And Lewis Homewood Racing Driver on the inside. Giles in the middle of a 3 wide, small tap there, and then coming off the corner, Giles losing her in. I think actually bounced off of the rear right quarter panel of James Fraser as well. And Yelmer Bergsma thankfully not being caught back up in a secondary instant there. It could have been close to tears. We come back to your live racing. As we do, well, misery for Jack Giles. Oh, as all the drivers carrying on at the moment, as Ellen Olsen looking to make another move. She heads in towards that braking zone, and as she does so, the Fleur TV Racing driver up the inside, and that's another place gain up into 10th place. Michael Rhodes a bit further back. 2 wide here and Mark De Vries, and with the Darkwing Racing driver definitely looking a bit more confident here compared to the man who started 5th overall. And right now the Darkwing Racing Championship leader for the club class, well, he's currently running in 8th place in the class and needs to chase down a few drivers. But the good news for him, albeit bad news for Joshua Downing, is that he is well ahead of Downing, who is in 10th place at the moment, his closest rival in the championship. And well, Joshua Downing had to go very wrong on lap number 4 for the Type 3 Racing team as he fights here with Jordan Butler. As they power the way down towards Roush Bend. Meanwhile, we've got a replay queued up as to what exactly happened to Joshua Downing for those curious. He did lose out sizably, and what we see John Butler getting clear of Downing. And let's go back for that trip in time. This was on lap number 4 as the rain started to fall, and as we did see, the Mikel Salcudi just behind the Type 2 Racing driver went onto the brakes and went straight on the braking zone, understeering wide there, nowhere near as much traction on the slick tyre at the time, and that's why your 267 driver ended up in the gravel trap. In fact, that was after you put wet tyres on, we should correct ourselves, so still trying to get those wet tyres up to temperature and get them acclimatised. It didn't quite work out. But we do come back, and as we see Joshua Down passing Dave Collier, well, right now, Dave Collier under pressure from Pete Paver and also Peter Florian. And we're trying to keep where's the club driver and the Premier driver behind him. This is a 15th place in Premier and 25th overall on the road. Right now, as they weave their way down towards what will be A1 Ring Bend. No such moves going forth here between the drivers as we come towards the end of the opening quarter of this race. Just up the road, the other DC Motorsport machine there, Ross Wheatley. Well, he finds himself caught between a rock and a hard place. He has got Jordan Butler right behind him. And he's got Martin Brandon's lap down Ferrari in front of him, although Brandon backs off there on the outside line. Ross Wheatley up the inside, and in the end, he's going to just about get that stopped in time. Albeit Jordan Butler with a better traction there, not touching the curb, and the BMW will now blast its way up the hill and look to be quite safe there for 13th place in Premier. As the 195 machine of Butler definitely showing the speed it's got on the straight. Head into the braking zone, however, you can see that the spray really build up as that rain continues to fall here at the Red Bull Ring. Jordan Butler right now keeping his head down and just carried on here, looking to make up for a bit more ground that he missed out on in qualifying, having started in 18th place. The class is up to 13th, but there's so much further to go. But as we look back up to Ashley Shucksmith, currently 4th of your club drivers, well, he has got Barry Wenman closing on him, but he won't be too upset about that, given the fact it's a Premier driver catching him, and he's got a sizable gap to Denny Ploger, who's next to your club drivers. As we show you the club class standings, indeed we show you both class standings on the time in town now. We split it based on class, and there we can see Shucksmith 3 seconds behind James Fraser, but in turn almost a 7-second gap to Denny Ploger. Speaking of whom, doing a fantastic job right now. Wife Chantal will be very happy to see he's running inside the top 5. With the MRC Rebels outfit in his McLaren, has got a little damage on the front of the car by looks of things now. I think he's had a bit of a moment with another driver earlier on, or at least a barrier. But other than that, I think right now Denny Ploger in a very happy place here. Carried on, and well, he's got a bit of a gap of 2.2 seconds to Jack Giles, his own McLaren, who's following. But Giles right now has got to keep the tempo up here, because Denny Ploger is matching for lap time, albeit on that last lap it was 2 tenths in the favour of Giles. So he may just close this gap down yet, but he's still got a way to go. Rain continues to fall here at the Red Bull Ring. You can see it there dropping onto our cameras every so often. And we are running a slight bit different technology here, whereby the raindrops are only visible at certain zoom-in angles. But as the drivers make the way around, we can assure you one thing, it is continuing to rain, and we're getting that feedback, of course, from down in the pit lane from some of you down there. And a big thank you to Mark Kemp for clarifying what we were saying earlier on with regards to Fiat and Ferrari, and saying that Fiat do still hold a controlling stake in Ferrari, though legally Ferrari are independent from Fiat Chrysler. So I've learned something new today, so I spoke a bit of misinformation earlier on. I do apologise for that, and thank you, Mark, for correcting that. It's always good to be corrected. I'm always happy to learn something. But right now, let's learn what's happening to Govind Suresh, because I think he's had a bit of difficulty out there. And in fact, we're going to get a replay straight away what's happened to him. No, we're going to see him there recovering the car. He's still in second in Premier, but he's now 17 seconds behind Liam Fraser. Well, that's definitely not the gap that he was at earlier. But meanwhile, whilst he's losing out, Ellen Olsen is absolutely on the attack. As where's Barry Wenman? As we see Ellen making a move here on Ashley Shucksmith, trying to go for the move on the inside in towards turn number 9. Does she get it done? The answer is yes, she will. So another place overall gained, and now Olsen up into 7th place. And a Flair TV racing driver absolutely storming up through the field. This is definitely looking to be a major podium opportunity here in the Premier Class for her. But where is Barry Wenman? There he is. He's recovered. I think we need a replay of that, plus what happened to Govind Suresh. But the good news is we have both lined up, so let's go back in time. So this happened to Govind Suresh, the man running second in Premier. Came out to Power Horse Bend, in towards turn number 7, and went a bit deep on entry. Tried to turn in, and the rear of the car for Chaps Motorsport just simply said, no, around we go. And well, in the end, had to get it off of the race line quite quickly. There were other cars coming through, particularly Krista Petty, but did well to get that back together. Barry Wenman then, I suspect he must have had a similar mistake, because this is literally starting where it started for Suresh, made his way in towards turn 7, and pretty much a like-for-like mistake, but you could see the car was going a lot quicker then, and well, unfortunately for Barry Wenman, he didn't have any space to get the car turned around, so he's had to reverse it slightly and gradually in order to get it turned, so that's why he's lost a lot more time. But as all the drivers make their way onwards, the Dexter Motorsports projecting to drive right now, and gets himself back together, but he's now down to 7th in the Premier Class and looking to go hunting after Mark De Vries. But Mikhail Salkudi runs very wide there, discovers that's the runoff area. He's going to try and rejoin now. That's not going to be easy on wet tyres, and he does in the end, but he does have to go through some standing water on the outside of the circuit. He's running 20th overall, 9th in the club class, but I suspect that's going to cost him some time and drop him further down. So I put him behind John Butler and Scott Kostic this rate, unless he's able to burn that slowdown penalty under braking there. But given the width of the road he used, well, he was able to do it then. Well done, Salkudi, for doing that. And, well, not losing any time in the end to those behind him, although definitely losing time to those in front of him. As he currently sits 9th in the club class, and the best part of 16 seconds behind Andy Chell. And, well, Andy Chell in conditions he normally thrives in, we should say. And right now, the Quackmaster Motorsport driver who opted to start from the pit lane and started on the wet tyre. So I think in the end, he actually made a late call to start on the wet, and it was a strategic call to start from the pit lane. If you're wondering why, well, of course, remembering the fact that the race time and the time of day advances when we are preparing on the grid, and of course when we do the formation laps. If you start from the pit lane, yes, you lose all your potential places you could have started in, but if you're putting wet tyres on the car, they will not be activated or released from their blankets until literally the field is making its way past the start of the race, i.e. when the formation lap is about to come to an end. So therefore, a bit of a cheeky way of just sacrificing some places to gain longevity on the wet tyre for that drier period at the start. So Andy Chell, they're playing the game, and that's that's why he's been able to gain so many places. A very smart move. They go from 16th to 8th, all for a edge. He opted not to start the race in that qualifying order. As he makes his way en route. Right now, the Quetmas Motorsport driver still got a bit more work to do as he heads onwards and chases after Michael Rhodes and Jack Giles. Speaking of which, Giles may have got around earlier on, but he's not gone to the ground right now as the Eurotitle Endurance Pink driver comes out to turn number 4 here and finds Rhodes getting closer and closer. We have had a bit of a mistake from Rob Gregg, who's relinquished the club lead to Christopher Petty. Some mistakes being made by drivers here, and well, make no mistake, we have to catch some more of those in the replay, as we do see here Ross Wheatley battling his way alongside Danny Weir. We're in the Porsche Dexter's Motorsports Cyan on the left of your picture. Ross Wheatley on the outside of DC Motorsport in his McLaren, and Ian backing off under braking as they all queue up together, and nobody really confident right now as to where you can brake. But as they all make their way through, the rain's still falling out there. We do see a sprinkle of it coming back onto our camera. And, well, these drivers all still having to do everything they can as Pete Faber comes diving up the inside there. And, well, there's diving, and then they're sending it for Australia. And that was definitely sent with a first-class stamp. And then some for Air Miles. And, unfortunately, Joshua Downey now is going to be on the back of all this as Martin Braddon tries to unlap himself here. And, well, it's going to be Ross Wheatley who is really going to lose out. Joshua Downey as well doesn't gain anything from this. He's going to lose out considerably. As we come back up to Mark De Vries, we put, say, place on Andy Chell. Barry Wenman tries to do the same. So the two Premier drivers picking off the club driver right now with 205 Chell, but he won't be too upset about that. As we are further back, Martin Kenyon there taking the place off of Rob Mackay, who I think made a mistake out the final quarter, has had to give up some time as a result. And Kenyon up into 10th place in the Premier class. But plenty of battling out there, but not just battling with each other, battling with the conditions. Although Mark De Vries finding that's going to be Barry Wenman all the way out the inside. Wenman goes for it here into AMSAG. And that's going to be to try and take over 6th place in the Premier class. But De Vries on the outside line gets more traction. And so Barry Wenman loses out again as they make their way down to Rolls Roush Bend. This is buying time for everybody in front of them to continue to extend the gap. The gap now to Matthew Massey is the best part of 13.1 seconds and rising. But as we did see there, a bit of a run deep by De Vries, but gets it together. Jack Giles, meanwhile, dispatching Michael Rhodes. And we can see Denny Ploger coming up behind the pair. And, well, from a man who doesn't enjoy the rain, right now Denny Ploger definitely slipping down the order. And we'll fall from 5th to 7th, losing 2 places there to both Rhodes and also Jack Giles. But just trying to keep his head on a swivel there and make sure he doesn't make any mistakes. It's the hardest part when you're not a fan of the wet conditions. It's not making errors. They come so quick and easy. But as we look back to Mark De Vries, still battling with Barry Wenman. And we look out the rear of the BMW M4 Evo 151. And what can the STL car do here? Because we're going to see Wenman try and go for the move in towards Jochen Rindt Bend. Goes all in. Does Wenman get it stopped in time? The answer is yes, he does. Slivers his way out, and that's a move that Jochen Rindt would definitely be proud of. As the British driver moves up to 6th place. And now can he chase after Matthew Massey with a 13-second gap to carve down? Or will he find his fate entwined with that of Mark De Vries here today? Well, as their battle calms down, we take a trip back in time and let's take a look at some big moments, including what happened to none other than your club class leader of Rob Gregg. So this was Rob Gregg leading very happily at the time as he made his way down to Roush Bend. You can see Christopher Petty in the rear of the picture, and the MRC Rebels driver went all in on the brakes, got the power down, and the rear of the car just completely let go. So unfortunately for Rob Gregg there, an innocent mistake, but Christopher Petty came to the scene of the incident and said, okay, I'll take that off you, thank you very much. And the bootleggers MRC driver now moving ahead of what was the Rebels machine instead. Then we had this of Peter Florian only moments later. And this is where it went a bit wrong for the privateer from Czechia as he headed up the hill into the braking zone for AMSAG at the time, running in the top 30. And carried way too much speed in. Did he get stopped before the gravel trap? Yes, he did. And then we had this for Denny Ploger only moments ago. And this is how Denny Ploger lost 5th place in club, or set himself up to lose it, to what was both Jack Giles and Michael Rhodes. So into the same quarter where it all went wrong for none other than Rob Gregg. And same mistake, but very quickly stopped the car there. Well done to Denny for doing so. Saw it was going loose, or felt it was going loose, and got the brakes on. But that enabled Jack Giles and Michael Rhodes to just simply stream their way around the outside. And we have just had this change happen, I do believe, between Barry Wenman and Mark De Vries. And, well, this was, of course, the move that was made all the way up into towards Jochen Rindt corner. We caught it only moments ago. We get an exterior view of it. And, well, this was the cut to the inside of Barry Wenman. And get it done. They're absolutely brave as they come on the brakes. And, well, making sure he didn't lose out. It's back to your live racing we come, and as we do, well, James Fraser has recently passed Govind Suresh, and now looking for a move on Rob Gregg, and, well, it's looking as though the Moonshines Racing Club drivers, they're going for a 1-2-3 here in club class at the moment. At least things are working out in the wet for them. more, so it's going to be huge points coming the way of the Moonshiners teams. And could they potentially make it a 1-2, not just in classes today, but also potentially make it a 1-2 in the team's championship going into the season finale? You never know, given the points that are on display here. Still 35 minutes to go, and remember, we are expecting the rain to stop within the next 5 minutes or so. It's not expected to go too long, as James Fraser comes in very late on the brakes there to the inside of Rob Gregg. Got to be careful of that. The last thing you want to do is take your teammate out. There's 2 rules in motorsport. Number 1 is beat your teammate. Number 2 is don't take your teammate out. And well, James Fraser there, I think, misunderstanding what beat your teammate stands for, if you know English slang. And right now, the Moonshiners Racing Club bootleggers driver has to reset and go on the attack once again. Let's go with Suresh, 1.6 seconds back. We watch it on from behind, a second of your Premier drivers, but he's been gradually caught by James Haworth as Liam Fraser's really bolted at the front of the Premier field. He already has a grand total of a 22-second gap, and that gap is only growing, it is not coming down. Barry Wenman's lapping faster than Liam Fraser, that should be pointed out. We do see Ellen Olsen very quickly crawling onto the back of this battle. Remember, of course, caught up in that instant with Paul Maffey, but did very well to make sure the car did not end up being forced into the pit lane and away from the barrier. And right now she's getting ready for another attack here as we ride aboard at the front dashboard camera on the Flair TV Racing 127. And for Olsen, remember, of course, no podium last time out at Daytona, but 2 third places before that. She did finish second on the road to the Hockenheim ring, but it was adjudged that with the lap 1 instant, she cut the course in too far and ended up losing that second place finish and was given a 3rd place instead. But right now, definitely going for second here today, if not for first. And with second place only 2 seconds up the road, but a wall of spray awaits her as she heads up the hill in towards AMS-AMG. James Haworth feeding the pressure there. That Ford Mustang no longer as strong as it used to be in the wet conditions. It used to be an absolute monster in the wet. But right now, as we look back to the battle for 5th place in the club class, Michael Rhodes versus Jack Giles. Rhodes looking on the inside here. Onto the brakes he goes. Giles on the outside and through the corner. Classic move there for Michael Rhodes, but he gets a whole face there of counter steer that he has to contend with. And well, Jack Giles is able to come back at him. But as it's battle from oversteer to straight line speed, well, Jack Giles knows all about that at the start of the race, and Michael Rhodes now experienced it as they come down into the braking zone for turn number 4. But Rhodes on the inside here. But can Giles find a way round? No, he cannot. He goes very deep into the braking zone. And you can see there actually where he crossed what was a flowing water patch as he came into that braking zone. That's why the car wobbled as he transitioned over the patch of water that was flying down, and therefore he had to back off and just let the car roll deep. So Jack Giles losing that place at the end, as meanwhile Ryan Abbott made his way around the outside to inside for returns 4 through to 6 versus Denny Ploger, and puts another position there on the Dutchman. And the Team Noobish driver slowly and steadily creeping up the order little by little. But as we look to Rob, oh, and that's Rob Gregg, and then also that's take evasive action literally last minute, and Rob Gregg gets it out the way, and well, the RC Rebels driver, it's all gone wrong, it's all gone around, I don't quite believe it. And right now for Rob Gregg, this is a heartbreak here, when he was on course for a return to the podium, potentially a chance to win, and now in the club class, he's got to pick everything up and start again. Also noted, that it does seem as though the rain has stopped falling as well in the last couple of minutes. I'm sure some of you down in the pit lane will be able to confirm that, but we do believe the rain is now stopped approximately after the best part of 20 minutes from when it started. It's come to an end, and now for our drivers, this is going to be a circuit that very gradually starts to dry, and initially it will start drying very lightly, and it will dry very rapidly when the clouds go away and the sun comes out. And when that sun does shine, well, you can imagine understandably that we're going to be seeing a drying line, and it'll be a question of, do you go to slicks, and if so, when do you go to them, and how soon will it be before drivers need to actually drive on the wet patches off of the drying line in order to gain pace. But meanwhile, as we look for a battle there between some drivers further down, well, that was Barry Wenman battling with Jack Giles. We look to Ellen Olsen versus James Haworth. This is for 3rd place in Premier, and Olsen on the inside there goes to the move in towards Power Horse and gets that done then. James Haworth having no response other than to let it go. Ellen Olsen being absolutely clinical, and another move being made there by the Flair TV Racing driver up into 3rd, and as she now chased after Govind Suresh. Only one more place before she goes for her best ever performance on the road, or to match it compared to Hockenheim ring. And then can she somehow find a way to chase down Liam Fraser, who has built such a gargantuan gap? Well, you never say never, to be fair. There could be a miscalculation of strategy later on. And this race is far from one and done. Jordan Butler's definitely embodying that spirit. He's been involved in a few more incidents recently as he battles side by side with Rob Mackay. Mackay on the inside there. Great respect being shown between these two for 11th place in Premier, but I think Butler is going to get that move just about done at the end. And he does so there as Rob Mackay tucks in behind. And when the sun definitely starts to shine over the circuit as they make the way down. And Rob Mackay looking to the inside. Can he get it done? The answer is no, not quite. Jordan Butler completes the move instead. Rob McCoy cannot get the counter-attack underway. But Andy Chell, he's had a bit of a spin as well. Rob Gregg had it go wrong, and now Chell's fallen victim to a similar incident. Of course, we need to understand what happened to Rob Gregg. In fact, I think we'll get a replay of both of them very shortly. But before we do, Hussein Sarkadesla passing Martin Kenyon, Ryan Abbott's as well. I wonder if Kenyon's had to take evasive action or whether he's made contact there with Andy Chell. Either way, Kenyon has lost a lot of time, and Hussein Sarkadesla, the Turkish driver Scuderia GPX, moves up into 9th. Now can he chase down 8th place man Ryan Abbott, so will Kenyon come back? The thing about Martin Kenyon, this Honda NSX Evo, or the Acura NSX Evo, is that it should be accurately referred to there, given it was an American-developed car, Acura being the American branch of Honda, or it's an offshoot, if you will now, given the fact they sell cars under their own branding. Honda do not sell, such as the Reborn Integra, as many of you may be aware, in the US of A only. Well, right now, the Dexter's Motorsports Magenta driver we saw at the Hockenheim ring, absolutely rapid in the Acura in the wet. It hasn't quite come together so far for him here today, but if he can get his head down and start to pick up the pieces, he may yet be able to achieve perhaps even a top 6 in the Premier Class. The Dexter's Motorsports Magenta, after seeing that win at the Hockenheim ring thrown away with a big mistake for turns 9 and 10 there midway through the race, but he won't be one to make a mistake such as that today. But Ellen Olsen has dispatched, going stretch. Oh, she hits the rear of James Fraser. Front bumper off of the car there. James Fraser goes straight on at A1 ring. And for Ellen Olsen coming in contact there. And well, going stretch has been passed. We have to catch up with that as James Fraser has been forced to pick up a slowdown penalty as a result of his excursion. And unfortunately, those slowdown penalties do not discriminate whether you were forced out onto an area where you pick up a slowdown or whether you made the mistake yourself. If you pick one up, you've got to serve it no matter how you picked it up. And meanwhile, James Haworth now, we're looking at this and thinking, okay, I might be able to get back involved here, as Ellen Olsen definitely having a bit of a moment. And well, we'll have to find out what exactly that moment was shortly. We're not going to pass judgment until we've seen the full facts and figures. As meanwhile, we can see there James Fraser pulls the inside, covering off that line versus Govind Suresh. And well, he's going to battle there for 4th place. And right now, Suresh definitely just trying to make a move on there for Chaps Motorsport, knowing that James Haworth is becoming an increasing threat as we look back from the rear of your 112. Now holding on here, and right now for Govind Suresh, he's not been this high up the order since Le Mans. Had an absolutely brilliant drive at Le Mans, of course, for that podium. It's one podium of the season so far. Suresh is not out the hunt for a podium here today. He's currently 3rd in Premier, but he's going to need to keep James Haworth behind him for the remainder of the race. That is not easy when Haworth is absolutely fired up, and also he's had plenty of time to rest as James Fraser tucks his way out the inside, going in towards Power Horse Bend here too while they come through. And well, the 2nd place club driver is not done with his position yet. I think he wants to go hunting after Ellen Olsen. I think he wants that 3rd place overall back and then potentially chased after Krista Petty. But speaking of all that happening, let's go back in time then and find out. Well, before we do, we're actually going to look to Martin Kenyon, who's fighting with Hussein Sarkadesla. And well, as he battles around the outside there, Sarkadesla not the best of runs out of Roush Bend. And I think Kenyon's going to take back the 9th place in the Premier Class, but he overcooks it into Power Horse. So Sarkadesla on the inside. They come out the corner. Both of them there giving each other plenty of racing room. And Martin Kenyon does get it done, but he makes it a bit more difficult for himself than he perhaps needed to. But when he's going all in for it, mistakes will be made. Let's make no mistake. We now go back in time to see what happened to Rob Gregg. This was back on lap number 16 when he was quite happily in pursuit of the lead of the club class of Krista Petty. But as he came down through A1 ring corner, lost the rear there on the apex, it went round, and then everyone had to take evasive action around him as he tried to get the car off the road as quickly as possible. Ellen Olsen had already reacted. She did very well there to then cancel her reaction, and well, could have been an absolute nightmare moment for both of them. We then had this for Andy Chell, and it was at the same place. What happened to the QMS Motorsport driver, who at the time was running 7th in the club class? This demoted him to 8th, and the answer is came into the corner, hit the curb, exactly the same as Rob Gregg there, but went sliding sideways. And then Martin Kenyon, that's what happened to Kenyon, the way he lost places. It was because of evasive action. And then we did have this for Ellen Olsen, firstly passing Govind Suresh. And this was a good move for the TV racing driver up the inside and towards Roush Bend. This was back on lap number 18, where she did take the 2nd place in the Premier Class. Suresh on the outside in the end, tried to hold it, but couldn't quite hold on. And then we did have Olsen and James Fraser having a bit of a conversation, a high-speed conversation at that. And this was going through turn 9 into 10. And Olsen then on the brakes. Oh, goodness me. And you can see what had gone wrong there. She didn't mean to hit the back of Fraser. She'd gone wide out to the curb, couldn't get the car off the curb before she had to apply the brakes to stop. And that caused her to go the best part of an extra car length into the braking zone in terms of depth, and that led to the contact. As we've just had this for none other than what is Josh Holmes of Team Yorkshire T, and he was making his way through Jochen Bend into his A1 ring. Charles behind and lost the rear of the car before he even made it into the corner. I think the rear left tyre briefly touched the white painted lines and sent it around for a spin. Unfortunate there for the 221 Mercedes driver, and indeed his woes with that car continue as we come back to your live racing. As we do, we say hello to another Dutchman in the YouTube chat. That's Arno Prague, driver for MJK Sim Racing. We haven't seen him on the grid for this season. Arno, I hope you're doing well. And when do we get to see you come back is the big question, because we definitely miss you on this grid. Oh my goodness, and what on earth's going on there? Cars around aplenty. Denny Ploger goes around, also Ryan Abbott's. And well, I can tell you one thing. We're about to say the MJK Sim Racing team is not quite complete if you don't have Arno Prague and Denny Ploger together. And well, perhaps that was a pre-entry commentator's curse, because the MRC Rebels driver somehow got it back together. But that was a bit of a scary moment as he makes his way onwards, and as he does, still 25 minutes to go. But as he does try it right now, he's fallen to 7th for the club class. He's got Andy Chell only a second behind him here. That's not going to be good viewing for him. He'll be wondering to himself, how on earth did he get to this? The answer is, it was a big slide. But with that, here's Martin Vries, 9.5 seconds ahead of Martin Kenyon, and there is Martin Kenyon right now as he continues to hold on to 8th place in Premier, albeit Hussein Sarkados on the inside, and Jordan Butler almost pushing him through the corner. As we ride aboard here with the Spectre Racing. And well, ladies and gents, we may have had a brief interruption to our broadcast there. I do believe just a small technical hitch. Don't worry about it. I think that's on our end rather than anything you've got to worry about. But what we were saying is that Jordan Butler just tried to make the move there on Hussein Sarkados. Couldn't quite find it. And oh, and Martin Kenyon goes around. Kenyon goes spinning around there into the gravel trap. Gets it wrong, going through turn number 6. And just like that, the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver has now got to pick up the pieces all over again. Well, the Englishman won't be too happy about that, no doubt about it. But not the way we wanted to go whatsoever. Well, the Acura driver going for a spin as he gets it back, but not a happy moment for him whatsoever. But we've also had difficulty for Michael Rhodes, who's fallen back a bit in 4th place at the club class, and we're only 8 tenths ahead of Rob Gregg in the meantime, as he makes his way onwards. And the 206 driver here with Rob Gregg right behind. It is all happening very rapidly indeed, as we got James Haworth looking up the inside there of Govind Suresh for 3rd place in Premier, 5th place overall. And when Dexter's Motorsports Sandra goes up the inside there, and Suresh not really offering a defence. I think just focusing on getting the car home and getting the points to the board. I think that's going to be a smart move here, given the rate at which we are seeing drivers make mistakes. We have lost a few drivers in this race. Non-starts for both Gavin Corby and Connor Pink, and we've had so far retirements of Paul Maffey, also Yelmer Bergsma and Martin Brandon. But otherwise, we still do have 33 of your 38 potential starters running in this race. So not too high a rate of attrition, to be fair. Everyone trying to survive as best as they possibly can. As all the drivers weave and wind the way on through. Well, right now, definitely it is proving to be a tough one out there for the drivers, no doubt about it. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we are going to see even more battling for drivers who perhaps are not expecting it, as Martin Kenyon throws the car off the road there, and that's up at AMSAG. And I think the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta driver, something wrong with the car, and that's the tow to the pit lane that's incoming, I suspect, or a technical issue that he's trying to get fixed, and we're hitting it to the barrier there. Well, it does they normally say if it's not working, give it a good whack, but I think with his Acura right now, the front left suspension definitely may not be working as well as it previously did before that whack to the barrier. Mark Vries carries on, well, chasing after Jack Giles. You see in the foreground of the camera shot for a brief moment, the 6th place runner in club, as right now 7th place Premier runner, a bit lonely out there in terms of class rivals, and things are definitely settling down. Albeit it won't be long before we suddenly see things take a bit of a different turn, of course, because up next in this race really is going to be the tough part, which is the transition from the wet tyre to the slick tyre, if drivers think they should do it. There's no expectation they have to do it. It all comes down to how quickly the circuit is drying and whether a noticeable dry line is forming. James Fraser, meanwhile, keeping James Haworth behind. It's the battle of the Jameses, and the MRC Bootleggers 2nd place club driver still doing a very good job there of holding position ahead of James Haworth. It's 1.5 seconds back to Govind Suresh, as Ashley Shucksmith a bit further behind. There you can see the McDonald's MRC car in the rear of the picture. He's bringing with him Matthew Massey and Barry Wenman. But it's good to see a whole variety of names we don't normally see up towards the front here today. Matthew Massey for Spectre Racing really got it right by starting on that wet tyre in his Acura NSX Evo, and well, really enjoyed a good run. This could be his best result of the season if it carries on like this, because his previous best, if my memory serves me correctly, has been, it's been a top 10, but it's not been quite a top 5. But here today, it could be a top 5 as he weaves his way through the middle sector of the lap. Further back, Scott Kostrich potentially being passed here by Pete Paver, who tries to go around the outside, and Kostrich finds a load of oversteer there as he tries to get the power down. A big tank slapper, as David Courtard would say, and the GPX is what Xenon driver from Scotland having a very difficult moment there, and something that fellow Scotsman David Courtard would not approve of. But as they come down, Ross Wheatley trying to go around the outside. Can Wheatley get this done onto the brakes? The answer is yes, the Irishman can, and well, definitely nice and smooth there, but goes a little bit too deep. Goes the gravel trap briefly, and now it's going to be absolutely reset and even Stevens between him and Kostrich. That were the two McLarens. Which 12th place in Premier, and Wheatley on the inside there will get that move done. Just like that, he will take the place, sliding loose there with the gravel that's been brought onto the road, and DC Burst will try and up another position. But as he makes his way on through, meanwhile, we come back up to Hussein Sarakadesla, still fighting it with Jordan Butler. These two have an absolute ding-dong scrap between them. And nothing separating at the moment other than what is the best part of about half a second. And Scooter GPX driver trying to keep Butler behind as they have both dropped several drivers along the way and feeling quite secure. Up the order, Barry Wenman making a move there on Matthew Massey. So he's finally made that move there for 5th place in Premier that he's been eyeing up for some time. And here's a quick replay as to how that was done. So this was then up the hill in towards the braking zone, and Barry Wenman in the end in the draft. While Matthew Massey opting not to go to the inside to defend, and Wenman coming from quite far back, but got that stopped. Massey went a bit deep into the corner to get the better traction, but Barry Wenman absolutely nailed it that time round. But back we come, and the Dexterous Motorsports Magenta drive still carrying on very positively so. And we look to Jordan Butler a bit further back, over the back of Hussein Sarakadesla, but can he find a way in? I think the answer is going to be no, not this time. As I said, he waits for his turn, but in the end goes very deep, follows Sarakadesla onto the exit curb and almost near miss a bit of a mistake. But meanwhile, whilst they push onwards, we come back to Max Dean, a bit of a lonely Max Dean, running 14th place in the club class at the moment, and the Gav Max Racing driver still going strong and still trying to pick up the pieces. He chased after Adam Waters, who is already 3.5 seconds up the road from him, and Waters as well for Team Noobish. Definitely right now, not making Noobish mistakes, but instead just keeping it on the black stuff and keeping it pointing in the right direction, which is all he's got to do as this race continues to evolve and the track conditions with it. But all the way back up to the front of the field, there's Liam Fraser for MRC Bootleggers and the Moonshots Racing Club driver. And right now leading overall and in Premier by an absolutely staggering 22 seconds ahead of Christopher Petty, but a further 10 seconds on the top of that. So he is 31 seconds or a bit more than that versus Ellen Olsen, his closest rival in the Premier class, and right now outpacing Ellen Olsen on that previous lap by 6/10. Liam Fraser has really got this all set up, and I wonder whether the team would decide to actually go over a wet setup of the car here and are perhaps expecting not to be a sufficient amount of time to go back to the slick tyre at the end. Well, we'll have to see. It'll be more downforce on the car, and also a lot higher will be ABS and traction control settings with it, and also most likely a much stiffer front anti-roll bar and a much looser rear anti-roll bar to really make this car want to understeer on corner entry and corner exit, and therefore make it a very stable platform to work with, just one that you have to turn very aggressively into the corners, as we do see. None other than what is Jack Giles making his way up the inside. And as he does so, the Eurotyres Endurance pink driver there going all in. Mark DeVries with him. And we do see these two still fighting over 12th place overall. The 6th place club driver still trying to keep behind the 7th place Premier runner. As meanwhile up the road, 4 seconds is Rob Gregg. But their closest car is going to be the Quemaster Motorsport machine of Simon Hunt. He's currently still working his way around at 15th in the club class, and more work to be done. But into the pit lane comes James Fraser. This is quite early, albeit the fuel tank started to run out here for those who opted to start on the wet tyre. Remember, there's several drivers who have not pitted so far, and let's show you that with regards to the number of pit stops made. And is that potentially going to throw what will be a bit of a different dilemma into the works here? Because those on the wet tyre at the moment who did not start on the slick, but they started on the wet tyre, they might be seeing their fuel temps come low, and are they forced to then continue on the wet tyre all the way to the end? Now, of course, Liam Fraser, as Andy Rooney does say there in the YouTube chat, and does make sure that people are aware of it, and we completely agree, Liam Fraser did start on the wets, therefore a good portion of his 22-second lead to the rest of the field, or what is a 31-second lead to Ellen Olsen, has come essentially from him not having to come into the pit lane. Otherwise, you would imagine that Ellen Olsen would be a lot closer, as would James Haworth and Barry Wenman. However, now, of course, he finds himself in a different conundrum, which is, if this circuit starts to dry quickly enough, and he hasn't got the fuel to keep going, does he go into the pit lane, go onto a wet tyre, and then have to come back onto the slick later, or does he have to then survive on the wet tyre to the very end, on a wet tyre that could be depreciating? That is the hard task that's going to be asked of him soon. But meanwhile, Hussein Sarakadesla and Jordan Butler, their task is to battle hard. And well, up the inside goes Jordan Butler for a move, and that'll be for 8th place in Premier. But Sarakadesla in the end essentially says to him, okay, you've gone deep, I'll try and come back at it. But Butler this time doesn't offer the door open there, so Sarakadesla is passed. Can he find a way on in towards Power Horse? And the answer is no. And will Jordan Butler just simply hold his line? Sarakadesla is the quicker driver for these medium speed corners, but the problem he does have is the fact he's got a BMW in front of him, and that BMW makes itself nice and wide. James Haworth into the pit lane. That's interesting. So he's coming quite early, but he didn't put any fuel into the car when he came to pits. He literally just put the tyres on the car. So that fuel tank, perhaps he's pushed it a bit too hard and now has to come in. So he'll very likely be going back out on a set of wet tyres they're in. It'll be the same set of wet tyres as what he's come in on. As Sakadessa Butler keep us entertained on camera, still fighting over the 8th place in the Premier class on the road at least, and most likely strategically at this point. Haworth in the pits, being serviced, fuel going into the car still, and in fact it's a 14-second stop, so in the end he will take that pit stop just for fuel, and he's now committed to the wet tyres to the end. Well, the way this circuit is going, it does look as though the wet tyre might be the right tyre to stay on all the way to the end. I think if it goes to go to a slick tyre right now, that would be too dangerous to try and do it. And instead, as James Haworth comes out behind this group, stay on the wet tyre is just going to give you the best comfort. The slick tyre may come alive literally in the final 5 minutes, but I don't think this circuit is drying quickly enough, particularly when we do have an ambient temperature at the moment of only 90 degrees centigrade, track temperature 23 degrees centigrade, so it's gradually coming up track temperature. However, it's not coming up quickly enough to evaporate the water. That's the problem. But as the drivers make the way onwards, we've got plenty of sunshine now as well, and we look to Pete Paver. Going to give the move on Andy Chell as these two fight over 7th place in club. Simon Hunt's had a bit of a moment, which drops him further down. The Audi was running 15th in the club class, but he's lost even more time now. Oh no, he's still in 15th at the moment. We should correct ourselves. But Pete Paver looking for a move. Looks one way, then the other versus Chell. Chell goes defensive to the inside into Roush Bend. Behind him is Ross Wheatley watching eagerly. The Premier driver wants to get past the two club stars, but in the end, Andy Chell on the inside. It goes nice and defensive, and Pete Paver is going to be held out to dry as more drives into the pit lane. As I look at my content booth window, well, Liam Fraser has just left the pit lane, having taken his one and only stop, so he returns to race in second. Ellen Olsen is in, so is another Barry Wenman, also going Suresh, and also I do believe it's the pits, Jack Giles and Matthew Massey. But with Ashley Shucksmith staying out there for at least another lap, as does Krista Petty, the MRC drivers who have stayed out in club, they've really made sure to extend this fuel tank as long as humanly possible. Very impressive as so. Well, perhaps I think if they go with that a little bit longer, perhaps there will be a slick tyre transition point. But as we mentioned only moments ago, this circuit right now definitely does not look prime for slick tyres. Although Adam Waters is going to gamble on it. He is going to the slick tyre. 32nd at the moment. There's nothing to lose by doing this for the Team Lubish driver. 15th for the club class as well. He may as well throw caution to win. This will be information, of course, that he can then feed on to his teammate of Ryan Abbott, who right now is a lap ahead of him. And Abbott, well, he has yet to take his second stop, which we believe he will have to do for the fuel. He did pit to go from slicks to wet, but now what can he find out of his teammate as to whether going back to slicks is the right way to go? But more pit stops being made. We have had a bit of an incident for Ellen Olsen, I do believe, as she makes her way onwards. So what's happened to Ellen? Because she was with James Haworth ahead of him, and I think she's lost out. Here's a quick replay to explain. So this was Olsen battling side by side with Hussein Sarakadesas to come out in the midst of the battle with John Butler and Sarakadesas on the inside on the braking. And as she came off of the corner, tight line, and the rear just let go, touching the curb, and the car just simply said no with regards to grip there, and did lose out. James Haworth, of course, came in a lap earlier and has actually gained places as a result. And with Ellen Olsen going, in fact, no, Haworth found his way around the outside there after Olsen's spin. So Ellen Olsen was ahead, but this does mean now she's got to make that place up versus Haworth for what is the third time today. Meanwhile, into the pits comes Krista Petty, also in Ashley Shucksmith. Meanwhile, what about Michael Rhodes? No, he stays out for a little bit longer. You can see that dry line is really starting to become noticeable on the start-finish straight, and also the run up towards turn number 3. But it's not that decisive at the moment, and Adam Watts' pace at this time definitely not looking impressive enough to really encourage people to go to the slick tyre. By looks of things, based on his second time, so I'm only struggling compared to those on the wet in his class around his pace bracket. So as we races, Michael Rhodes carries on here. Well, second overall lead of the club class, but remember, Krista Petty has recently pitted, and Petty's not too far behind. So at this point for Rhodes, I don't think he's getting to the end of this one. I think this is Petty's race to lose in the club class right now. But the MRC bootleggers driver's just got to carry on here in his wet tyres, keep them nice and comfortable, make sure he keeps them cooled by going to the inside of the circuit every so often, or off the racing line, off that drying line, and he should be able to survive. As we look back to Matthew Massey, having just passed Govind Suresh on the run out to turn 1. Well, onwards he goes then, 14th place overall, at 10th in the Premier class. He's still scrapping, but remember they've got some drivers in front of him who need to pit soon. Rob Mackay and Ryan Abbott's the two of them, right in front of them down the picture. So therefore we still got a bit of shaking up at this field to go. And indeed, the best way to read it is the majority of the drivers behind Ellen Olsen, who are on a single stop, they're very likely to make a second stop soon, although Rob Gregg is an exception, as is Jack Giles, because they were wet weather tyre starters. Also, they're none other than Denny Logan. Speaking of which, he's running 13th in club, 28th overall at the moment, and still trying to get to the end here, struggling on in the wet conditions that he doesn't normally enjoy. It's only been an odd race, given the way the weather's come and the strategies have been split. Still got 10 minutes to go here, and Hussein Salkadestas now into pit lane, and the Scuderia GP Extra makes way down a pit road. As he does, well, he's going to relinquish a few places, and well, the drivers he'll be worried about, of course, with the likes of Ryan Abbots and also Rob Mackay, as they both go another lap. My goodness, they really extended the fuel tanks of both Abbots and Mackay, and are they trying to essentially go what would be a one-stop here? I don't think it's going to happen. As you can see, all the drivers there pulling over to the right, getting towards the pit wall to cool the tyres down. That's where all the water is now, and all the water on that racing line on the outside of the start-finish straight has completely gone almost, to the point where you can understand if that overheats those tyres. And well, nobody seems to be going for the slick tyre. Adam Watts is the only one on it, but he's really struggling at the moment, and Watts, as a team noobish, is recovering from the grass there. So he's had it go wrong through turns 7 and 8, where there's a lot of water still flowing downhill into those corners, and that's where it really is the danger zone with regards to being on the slick tyre. So Watts is struggling out there, and indeed not finding any time on the slick tyre. So I think confirming to everybody that the slick is too risky to go onto, unless you're feeling very brave and bold and brazen. But coming back to Rob Mackay, still keeping going Suresh behind him for now. And well, Suresh has just pitted. Meanwhile, Mackay has yet to pit, and it's going to be a look at the inside for Suresh, and Mackay simply holds his line. And I think Suresh there going a bit too late on the brakes, almost making contact with Mackay. Thankfully not. Could have been tears between the two of them otherwise. As a bit further back, Scott Kostrich and Andy Chell having a bit of goal scrap for 26th overall. Chell having recently pitted. Meanwhile, Scott Kostrich also pitted at the same time as him. Albeit Kostrich having to take a lot less fuel on by comparison. As I look out my Conte booth window, we've actually got Mark De Vries coming into the pit lane now. So De Vries on in, and well, as he makes way down pit road, he's going to give up some places. But where will this bring him out? Given the fact he has got a bit of a gap to Jordan Butler, there's James Haworth, and behind James Fraser, and well, I think this is going to put him towards what will be around 8th, 9th place in the Premier class, and my guess is correct. Again, we still have some drivers who've yet to pit, but I think strategically it's around 8th in Premier. It may be a little bit lower. As De Vries already leaving the pits there. A 9-second pit stop. Comes out behind Olsen. Also comes out behind what is Ryan Abbott. But remember, Abbott still needs to take a pit stop, we believe, for fuel. It's going to be the tightest splash and dash as Pete Paver, Mikhail Salkuni and Danny Weir all in. Meanwhile, speaking of Mikhail Salkuni, it makes way down pit road. And well, we've also got slick tyres going on to Petter Florian's car. So somebody else is gambling with slick tyres. Again, that driver's got nothing to lose by doing so. But Salkuni being serviced here, and this will just be fuel going in the car. And when you've got 7.5 minutes to go here right now, putting the slick tyres on is not going to be worth the time. Although saying that, Salkuni is putting slick tyres on there as we just panned away. The car was up on the jacks there, I believe. Look at my content booth window. They definitely got it up on the jacks Serrano Esports. And they're saying to Salkuni, give it a go. You may as well do so. But as Liam Fraser comes through to complete his 31st tour on the circuit with 7 minutes left on the clock. Right now, he can take it nice and easy as Adam Watts has rejoined to the outside of A1 ring corner. And right now, Fraser not too long away. And well, this won't just be a win, but this will be a win that makes him champion-elect in the Premier class with a round to spare before we do go to Suzuka in a week's time. But Michael Rhodes into the pits as well, coming in for what will be his final stop of the day. This will give the lead back in club to Christopher Petty, and Petty right now not too far away from taking what will be his first win of the season. He's been runner-up in some instances when it comes to his performances compared to the rest of his teammates at Moonshiners Racing Club, but right now this could be a win, and something that Ashley Shucksmith has yet to find this season in the club. He'll be the first one to do it out of the Moonshiners, and goodness me, will he be grinning like the Cheshire Cat if he can make the magic happen. James Haworth still with James Fraser behind him, the two Jameses together, and right now second in both their respective classes, third and fourth for the road. But look who's coming up quickly behind. Barry Wenman were personal best that last time around. A 39.38 on the wet tyre is absolutely flying. We are on to dry pace laps on the wet tyre, so that means we are heading to the crossover point here of what will be going from wet to slick given the pace that's been seen. Well, we do know that Mikhail Salkuni has gambled going to the slick tyre, as has Rob Mackay, intriguingly enough. So a few more drivers designed to go for it here, but surely there's not enough time left in the race to risk it. As we do see, Fraser and James Haworth still fighting. And, well, Fraser make his way back past Haworth, but overcooks into the braking zone. And right now, I get the feeling that he's doing everything he can here to try and take an overall podium. He doesn't just want the podium in his class. He wants to be on that overall step of the podium, ahead of Haworth and also Barry Wenman behind. And remember, we've only ever had one instance in this series history where we have had, in a two-class split, the bottom class take every step of the overall podium. Was at Mazzano all the way back in season, what was it, 9 if my memory serves me correctly, and it was the second sprint race there where pandemonium unfolded in heavy wet conditions, and in the end it was a top 3 overall of club drivers and an absolutely crazy day of racing, no doubt about it. And right now James Fraser definitely wants a taste of overall podium glory as much as he wants to be on his own class podium. But for your slick runners who've come in, here's Rob Mackay. And, well, right now, chased after none other than Peter Florence, but a lap on him. Let's keep an eye on the lap times. Mikel Salcuni, we haven't got an indicative lap for yet. We haven't got an indicative lap for many of our slick shot runners. The only one who has is Adam Waters at 1 minute 44, but he's had several off tracks along the way. So right now, Waters is struggling out there. I don't think the slick tyre was the right call for those who've gone to it, and I think they're only going to feel more pain as a result. But I think Salcuni here, just up the road, has essentially gone, well, I've got nothing to lose, go for the gamble. And the Verano eSport Edge Overlays driver here has got to absolutely religiously follow that dry line of the tarmac. Any deviation from it, and he'll very quickly discover he's left it because he'll be running so wide and the car will lose traction. But right now, that's the dampest patch of the circuit, coming through turns 7 and 8. That's the tough place for the slick tyre, but even you can see on the apex of 8 now, we've got a drying line. So imagine if this race went another 10 minutes, I think you would have seen a transition point to the slick tyre, and a very valid one. As Menno Bloem passes Denny Ploger. And the man who took pole position right at the end of the qualifying session overall, right now fighting for his 21st overall and 14th in class. He chased after Scott Kostrich right in front of him. And Menno Bloem here definitely having a rough return to the racing after missing the last couple of rounds. But 3.5 minutes left for Liam Fraser. He goes on to lap 34, and after this one there will be 2 more. And let's see what it'll be as he heads upwards, as we are James Haworth still has the pressure on Barry Wenman. A close fight here for the runner-up spot in the Premier class. They do have a gap of 5 seconds to Ellen Olsen, but should these two start to fight, the two teammates in Dexterous Motorsports, one of Sign and one of Magenta, so they're in rival teams for the outfit, where it could bring Olsen in. There you can see Olsen still chased after Ashley Shucksmith, the third place runner in the club class, who pulls aside, I think, wants to let Olsen go. I think Shucksmith here not wanting to throw away what would be his 6th podium of the season, and, well, keeping his head down there of his class result. Although saying that, Olsen has to go around the outside, so Shucksmith at the end does put up a bit of a fight. Meanwhile, James Haworth, as he continues to keep Barry Wenman behind. Well, Wenman's going to be looking for the move here. Remember, they're on wet tyres, so Wenman can use all the road, so can Haworth. Onto the brakes they both go. And, well, looking around the outside, can Wenman get it stopped? He can, but will he get it done? Not quite yet. Meanwhile, Ellen Olsen trying to go around the outside there. Ashley Shucksmith, who ducks the inside. And Olsen right now being held at bay as Haworth versus Wenman. These two continue to fight each other, and it's going to be Wenman on that outside line, feeling the more confident now on the dry line as well. So he's got the quicker patch of tarmac, but Haworth's got the inside. He can defend it better, and that's exactly what he does. Olsen back onto the inside now versus Shucksmith. I think this is going to seal the deal for her to move up into 6th place, and she gets that absolutely dialed in perfectly, and Olsen moves up another overall position, but it's cost her so much time chasing after Haworth and Wenman. I don't think she can get close enough now unless Wenman and Haworth have the mother of all instants between each other. Meanwhile, we look back to Scott Kostrich, still has Menno Bloem closing on him, and, well, Bloem will be very keen to take that place as Denny Ploger finds the company of Joshua Downing and Andy Chell behind him. So quite the fight between these drivers about to unfold potentially as they make the way up the hill, and indeed now start to make the way on the descent. And Chell almost there, but Downing versus Ploger, and for Joshua Downing, he needs this 8th place to limit the damage, with Michael Rhodes expected to finish 4th here today in club at the moment. So Downing is going to be slipping away. Rhodes won't seal the championship with a round to spare, but he'll definitely give himself the favourite status going into it, although Ashley Shucksmith I think will jump ahead of Joshua Downing going into the season finale, or at least it'll be very close. But there we see Downing does clear Denny Ploger in. Better grip going through turn number 5. So another place gained, but that may be the furthest he goes here today. As Barry Wenman, well, after clearing what was James Haworth only moments ago, in fact, he's also cleared James Fraser. So he's finally got that done. And how did he complete it? We didn't quite catch it. Here's a quick replay. So this was their battle in the end down towards turn number 4, and James Haworth defended on the inside. So how did Barry Wenman get it completed? And it was the switchback here. We cut away with Ellen Olsen making the move on was actually Shucksmith, and Wenman did get the inside line for turn 5. Now enough an overspeed there to make it in towards turn number 6. Haworth fought it hard, but in the end Barry Wenman on that outside line just to the greater grip and was able to complete the move. But we now come back, 40 seconds left on the clock here, and still some battles to be decided. Your leader, Liam Fraser, he has to go one more lap here, does the Moonshiners Racing Club bootleggers driver. And right now, one more lap to go that separates him from Destiny, a 6th win of the season, and with it, the champion-elect status in Prairie. He always got to do is hold on, and for Christopher Petty, it's one more lap between him and a maiden club win this season. And well, it's been a long time since we've seen him up on the podium in his class, and indeed taken a winning class. He has taken one previously, if my memory serves me correctly, but the best part of 3 seasons ago. As we have a black flag for Adam Waters. What about your slick runners? What pace are they doing? Well, the good news for slick runners is they are now lapping on average 3 seconds a lap faster than the fastest wet runners out there. The only problem is they are coming onto their final lap if they're not on it already. So they have lost out in the big stakes game. As Rob Mackay then makes way up the inside of Dave Collier to take at least 15th back in the Premier class. But now he's got to try and find his way past Andy Chell. And he's got to do it on a wet patch of tarmac, on a slick tyre. That's not going to be easy. He's got to understeer wide there, bit of contact with Chell, but they both just about survive it. Meanwhile, Liam Fraser now comes into the scene of where that was only moments to go. And well, not too far away from seeing this one to the end, as Rob Mackay definitely completed that move versus Dave Collier, and Andy Chell not too far adrift from him. But these drivers right now have got one more lap to go. Again, our leaders behind them and hasn't quite put a lap on them. But Rob Mackay, I think now looking safe there for 15th place in Premier. If nothing more today, I think he'll be happy with how he's been able to get that slick tyre up to grip, even if he's run out of time to get the most out of it. But meanwhile, for this man, for Liam Fraser, well, he came there to this season, wanted to deliver what he hasn't done in some time, and as he makes his way through the final corner, it's not just going to be a 5th win of the season, but it is going to be a 6th win of the season for Liam Fraser, and with it, championship crown, champion-elect status, and what an achievement for the MRC bootleggers driver in the 174. He makes it happen, and 26 seconds behind him, well, for Christopher Petty, 2 corners becomes 1, and then 1 corner becomes a run to the finish line, and the MRC bootleggers driver will make sure it's a 1-2 overall for the team, but it is double victory for them as well, as he comes across the line there, your winner for the first time this season in the club class. 5 seconds ahead of Barry Wenman, your runner-up here for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta in the Premier class. 3rd overall, James Fraser takes the podium. 2nd in the club class, ahead of James Haworth in the end, who finished off the Premier class ahead of Ellen Olsen by 2.5 seconds. She finishes in 6th. And then Ashley Shucksmith will hold on for his 6th podium of the season. And what an achievement for the MRC bootleggers drive. 3rd in club, just in the Michael Rhodes. Matthew Massey comes through for a season best 5th place in Premier, 9th overall. And it'll be Mark DeVries in 10th, ahead of Govind Suresh, with Jordan Butler finishing behind them. Rob Gregg completes the top 5 in club, 13th, ahead of Sue Hussein, Sarah Kadesla, and Jack Giles delivers 6th place in club, with Ryan Abbott's coming on through for 16th place. There it's going to be Martin Kenyon. Pete Paver right behind them by 5 seconds, with Josh Holmes there a lap down, but sees the checker flag. Good for him to do so. And then we do see Ross Wheatley there in 19th place just behind, and it's a further 6.5 seconds back to the man who took pole position, but sadly for him, the best he's going to achieve here is 13th in Premier, 20th overall. It's Meadow Blythe for SimRacing Team Lowlands ahead of Rob Mackay and Scott Kostrich, who on those slick tyres ran out of time to get the most out of them. Denny Blow will take 8th place in club for MRC Rebels, and it'll be Dave Collier just behind him, 24th. And then we will see a last lead lap finishes in the form of Andy Chell taking 9th place, another top 10 for the Quetmas Motorsport 205 driver in club, and Mikel Salcuni and 10th place at the end. Seen it all go wrong, and the same can be said for Joshua Downing, 11th in the club class, and a late error, I believe, cost him even more points right at the finish, and heartbroken, I suspect, with the way this race has ended up. But as the drivers cool and calm on down, well, the Moonshiners, boys, they like to refer to themselves all together. And right now, if Liam Fraser was on a mission from God today with that Blues Brothers livery, I can tell you one thing, it's mission achieved there. And, well, 6 wins this season. Let's just double check that statistic. It is 6 wins this season, and with it, he will be your champion-elect, subject to any stewards' inquiries and the results being confirmed, because that will be enough points, despite Barry Wenman finishing second today, to ensure he cannot be caught in our season finale. And for Liam Fraser, he's going to be absolutely ecstatic. But also Christopher Petty, what an achievement for him in the club class, bringing on home that victory, his first of the season, and that will be enough most likely to move into the top 12 with only a round to go. And can the MRC Bootleggers driver potentially take a top 10 right at the end of the season in the championship? James Fraser, well, it wasn't quite the win that he missed at Daytona, but in the end it is his first podium of the season, and if you can't win, why not finish off a 1-2 for MRC, and doing exactly that there, 1-2 for the team behind Christopher Petty in the club class. As the drivers cool and calm down and make their way into the pit lane, and let's take a look to the scenic view, and with it the race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. And as we can see, after an absolute epic of 60 minutes of racing it in round number 9 of 10 in the SimRacing International Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13. You've been tuned to Split B, the Premier and Club classes here at the Red Bull Ring on iRacing, and Liam Fraser leading home a 1-2, and well, it's the first team 1-2 overall that we've seen across two different classes in recent history, with MRC Bootleggers Liam Fraser, your Premier winner over an overall winner, ahead of second place overall finisher and club winner Christopher Petty. Barry Wenman, third there for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta, 6 seconds adrift, ahead of James Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, almost a 1-2-3 for the team, and what a 1-2-3 that would have been, but not quite the way they wanted it to go, but in the end he fought hard and took second place in club and fourth overall. Then we did see, in none other than 5th place, James Haworth there for Dexterous Motorsport Cyan, and I think he'll be very happy to be able to finish on the Premier podium once again, but unfortunately not quite the win he was hoping for to level the score of Barry Wenman, and now he's on the back foot, with Barry Wenman looking increasingly secure for what will be the run-up spot in the Premier Championship going to Suzuka. From the Dexterous Motorsport Cyan driver, it was only a further 3 seconds, if that, to Ellen Olsen for Vanilla TV Racing, and she threw everything at it, but unfortunately 2 incidents, one with Paul Maffey going towards what was turns 9 and 10 early on, and a later spin at turn number 3. So Ellen Olsen lose out when she had the chance to chase down James Haworth and potentially Barry Wenman for the run-up spots in the Premier class. But a full for her for Vanilla TV Racing, she'll still have the confidence that she can finish in the top 5 in the class at the end of the season. Ashley Shuck-Smith, 7th there for MRC Bootleggers, and round off the club podium. Indeed, an all MRC Bootleggers podium there in the club class. You love to see it. And then Michael Rowe to Darkwing Racing just missed out on the podium, only what was a second behind. Matthew Massey, 9th there overall for Spectre Racing, his best result of the season so far, ahead of Mark DeVries for SimRacing Team Lowlands, and outside the top 10, Govind Suresh, who did the right calls and strategy, but in the end, unfortunately for Suresh, the Chaps Motorsport drive struggled in the wet to a degree, and that's when gradually fall down the order. John Butler, 12th there for Spectre Racing, only half a second behind, but Suresh having the upper hand, and then we did see Rob Gregg completing the top 5 of the club class at MRC Rebels, after leading the race until a mistake at turn number 10 sent him backwards, and Scuderia GPX's Hussein Sarkodessa and Jack Giles for Eurotitle Endurance Pink completed your top 15. 16th, it was Ryan Abbott's Team Nubish ahead of Martin Kenyon. The Dexterous Motorsports Magenta drive followed up by Pete Paver, and it was Ross Wheatley and Menno Blime who completed your top 20. Behind the SimRacing Team Loans driver, who returned to the race and took pole position but lost out in the race, we did see a 21st there for Rob Mackay, with gambled to the slicks, being too late in the day, but he definitely had the pace there. If only the rain had gone away or arrived a bit earlier and got away sooner, but he was ahead of Scott Kostrich and in by a second, and then Denny Ploger survived the wet conditions to take 23rd. He'll be happy to have made it to the finish, take 8th in club, ahead of Dave Collier, with Andy Chell completing the top 25. Mikhail Salkuni and Joshua Dan were your last lead lap finishers. As we say hello to Josh in the YouTube chat, who says that he hadn't quite put the right fuel in the car, and unfortunately for the Type 2 racing driver, that scuppered his chances of taking the fight to Michael Rhodes in the end, and it means now he's on the back foot going into the season finale at Suzuka. More on that very shortly. And then we did see Danny Weir, 28th, the first star driver to finish a lap down, alongside Max Dean, Simon Hunt, Josh Holmes and Peter Florian. And behind the Czechia driver, the privateer, it was 2 laps down to Adam Waters for Team Lewis, who gambled going to the slicks way too soon and found himself in the grass and in the runoff areas more than on the tarmac for a time. And then we did see non-finishes for Martin Brandon, Yoma Bergsma and Paul Maffey, and non-starts for Connor Pink and Gavin Corby. To individual class finishing positions we go, starting with Premier as always, and here we can see in the top of our 2 classes, in terms of pace, Liam Fraser for MRC Bootleggers taking that 6th win of the season, and with it becoming your Premier Champion-elect. All he needed was 10th or higher today if Barry Wenman won the race. That was the caveat, but Liam Fraser and making sure that it's he who won the race. That gamble of starting the wet tyres paying off massively and gifted him the best part of a 28-second lead, and he did not squander it. Second was Barry Wenman of Dexter's Motorsports Magenta, one of many a driver who started on the slicks and had to go to the wet tyre, and more than the McLaren driver there making sure to get the upper hand versus James Haworth, and the Dexter's Motorsports Science driver now finds himself with a sliver of hope of trying to steal back second place in the championship at Suzuka. Alan Olsen for Valera TV Racing, absolutely rapid at the start of the race, but 2 incidents cost her time and sadly taking 4th place when the podium was so close, but behind the Dutch lady, Matthew Massey there for Spectre Race, the further 5 seconds adrift, but able to hold on to his final spot inside the top 5 in his best result of the season, head of Mark De Vries for SimRacing Team Lowlands. Govind Suresh, John Butler, Hussein Salkadessa and Ryan Abbott's completed the Premier top 10, and then it was a further second behind to Martin Keane, who came on strong in the late stages, but his Acura being very temperamental today, and Ross Wheatley a further 7 seconds behind it in 12th for DC Motorsport. Menno Blom took 13th for the end, and seeing the heroics of qualifying completely undermined by a villainous end to his opening stint in the race, but he was ahead of Rob Mackay and Scott Koshich, who completed the Premier top 15, and then it was Dave Collier in at 16th place with a lap down to Peter Florian, and then non-finish for Jelmer Bergsma and a non-start for Connor Pink. Then to the club class we go, the second tier of our classes, and here we can see a maiden win for Christopher Petty at the head of a 1, 2, 3, Moonshiners Racing Club bootleggers podium, and James Fraser and Ashley Shucksmith completing the order. Rob Gregg led the race for a sizable period of time, but a spin at A1 Ring Corner cost him the chance of taking home his first win of the season, and so it fell to Christopher Petty a maiden podium, and with the first win of the season, James Fraser his first podium of the season, and Ashley Shucksmith making it his 6th podium of the season, and it means it will draw him comfortably level now, if not ahead of Joshua Downing in the club championship. Michael Rhodes splitting the MRC machines there for Darkwing Racing, a 4th place today, and most importantly, beating Joshua Downing and 1 place behind Ashley Shucksmith. It means he goes into the season finale with a sizable advantage to become your club champion, if he can hold on. And then Jack Giles, the Eurotones Endurance Pink driver, it all went wrong in the open lap, but by goodness did he recover and took 6th place and keeps his hopes of a top 3 in the championship very much alive. Then it was Pete Paver for LS Racing 1, who had ups and downs, but did well to finish 7th, one of his better drivers of the season. And behind the Brazilian was Denny Ploger, who survived the wet to take 8th for MRC Rebels, 4 seconds ahead of Andy Chell for QMS Motorsport, and Mikhail Salcuni for Rhino Esport, who made a late charge on the slick tyres, but it wasn't enough time there and only managed 10th place. After a good start, all went wrong when the wet weather came. Joshua Down was best dressed in 11th for Type 2 Racing ahead of Danny Weir. The first star drives to finish a lap down, and alongside him in that category, Max Dean, Simon Hunt and Josh Holmes. 2 laps down was Adam Waters, and then it was a non-finish for both Martin Brandon and Paul Maffey, and a non-start for Gavin Corby. But with that, ladies and gents, that completes your rundown of the finishing positions subject to any stewards' inquiries. And with it all, you're racing here today at the Red Bull Ring. And as the sun shines, that gives us an opportunity, ladies and gentlemen, to step away for a brief moment. And we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for post-round interviews while select drivers. And don't go anywhere. You won't miss what our drivers have got to say about the challenges of the wet conditions day here at the Red Bull Ring. We'll see you very shortly. And it's lights out and away we go for our season opener as Sardpie gets a good start, but look alongside him and you'll see there Milton Tomlinson Dennis immediately going the attack into the braking zone. 1 drive into the grass already, that's Mikey Story, but 3 wide they come into the opening corner. That's a bold move there. William Humphrey makes the place as they make the way through in towards turn number 2. I think the Altitude 3M Esports driver here might just be fancying his chances once again as they come into the braking zone now for turn number 1, and as they make the way from right into left, well, Hayden Miller here side by side with him. They'll go all the way through to turn number 3, and Saunders does take the place there. That's for overall position, not for pro position. Saunders is the pro leader, but he goes a bit deep there in 3 to the inside of 4 then, and Miller right now enjoying this. Saunders enjoying it. A little bit of rub and contact between the two of them, but nothing wrong with a bit of bump and grind between the two Fords, for the Ford and the Corvette, the 2 Americans I should say. And
with those 2 Evo drivers in front of them, because they're realistically in a completely different race, they're just a barrier up towards the likes of Rubino and Wenman. Oh, there's Rubino going off the road, and here comes James Bostock, past 1, past 2. This is a great little move from James.
Oh, and look behind him as well. Hardiak, up high, he decides to come back down low. But Denny Plurger has really lost a lot of ground here. He's lost 7 places since the start of this race in that green Porsche. It is, but look at this, for the lead, Hammond wants it. He's gone back down the inside. He got off the brakes again to let the car down the inside of Rob Mackay. And you said Rob was going to be clinging on at the front. And now he's clinging on to second. Great move by Lewis Hammond. Really good committed stuff. And look, down the inside, Richard White. He wants a piece of this in the Porsche. He's got James Bostock.
And it's lights out and away we go here as Mirko Bortolotti goes exactly on the green, and as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, Martin Statman side by side with him, but look behind, Tim Perry under pressure, Miguel Leon immediately as the Enosis Esports driver tries to put the pressure on. Further back we've got 3, 4 wide, they're all in the crush as they come through the opening bay. Look back for the rear of your second place runner, Statman, and Statman right now for the Gazex Racing team. What he's trying to do here, I think now, is just hold on to second, and if needed, he may have to act as a bit of a buffer and perhaps sacrifice a little bit of his race for the race leader here, although Bortolotti, to be fair, I think might be holding some pace back. But here comes Lux in the tow, in towards what we roller coaster they come with the Virginian corkscrew. It's left into right very quickly here as they both make the way, and it's 2 wide on entry, but Lux gets ahead. It's up into second now, as it will be Martin Statman falling down to third, but Callum Lux does clear another one, and now only one car is between him and an opportunity of victory here tonight. Which is Perry going to make the move, or I'm going to have to make the move for him? Well, there's your answer. Perry's going to go on the inside here of Dean into the braking zone. Edwards gets to watch it from the popcorn seat view. Perry there being 2 wide on exit. Dean's going to try and hang around the outside. Does Edwards think about going up the inside as well? He gets himself ready for it in case there's contact, but there's not. Perry there being fair. Dean tucks back in behind. Lovely move there from Tim Perry. And I think meanwhile Beardsworth will hope they don't get close up in time as Beardsworth's going to look up the inside. He goes all in, and it's from very far back. He gets it stopped, however, and Beardsworth there nails the move, but Tillerson's going to come back at him up the hill. Does he go in on the brakes here? This is bold to do it on the inside. No, he does not. And Brian Beardsworth at the end, he gets it wrong. He goes out wide at turn number 6. Tillerson's going to be 2 wide with him, but 2 wide they're going to turn 7. Tillerson goes to the switch back there. 9 has no way through, and in the end they come down towards turn number 8. Well, there Tillerson backs off. He lets Hutchinson go around the outside, but is it the right call? Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to kick off our post-round interviews with our drivers, and who better to come to, of course, than our champion-elect provisionally for the Premier class and your winner today in said class. It's Liam Fraser, who joins me in the interview room now. Liam, good evening to you, and well, what a way to become champion-elect to the Premier class. A 6th win of the season, a gamble and strategy that worked out, and of course, as per your livery, you were on a mission from God. How are you doing?
Oh, magic, absolutely magic. Sweating, absolutely sweating.
Oh, goodness me, you've definitely exhausted yourself today, but you've done it absolutely brilliantly. And it all started, of course, in the qualifying session. Although I have to ask, did you know what you needed to do here today to become champion, or had you not done the math?
I didn't, but I saw you had, so I read what you put. So yeah, I did actually. I looked and I thought, well, let's aim for 5th. That's in the middle. Can I do 5th? And then I read out the list of names and some really strong competitors in here. So I knew what I needed to do and I knew how to execute it. But I was surprised. I was super surprised in the race.
Now, you may have been surprised in the race. We'll come to that very shortly. 4th in qualifying, a respectable lap, but the Red Bull Ring, of course, one of those circuits whereby the Mustang shines at certain points, but other points it's not as quick. Were you happy with the qualifying performance?
Yeah, I knew in qualifying I needed to take a tail feather. So, but on the pace lap, when we were rolling, we had the right tyres on, obviously. But yeah, we know it was good, really good. I just kept keeping an eye out for Jimmy the Moocher, because everybody needs somebody to love. But when we were 3 laps from the end, it was sweet home Chicago, wasn't it?
Oh, 100%. It really was Sweet Home Chicago, like you say. And an inspired gamble to start on the wet tyre. I mean, those opening 3 or 4 laps, it must have been a game of just be patient, let people go, don't waste time, as much as we know you love to battle.
Yeah, we just needed to hold the pace there and just wait for it to come to us. It quite clear the MRC boys did their own work. We did our own work, we copied each other's own work, and we got the right answers, to be honest.
Oh, it worked out considerably, and in the end, taking a lead which would swing the best part of 28 seconds in your favour because of not having to make a pit stop. And it looked all comfortable on that wet tyre, although I have to ask, were you worried at all about having to potentially look at going to the slick tyre?
Yeah, again, we've done our own work. I've done my AI races on that. With 40 cars, but when 37 turned up, I wasn't sure whether that was going to be enough. So I knew I had to fuel save, give myself an extra lap, just to give it another lap to make a decision. And if I'd have had 2 more laps worth of fuel, there's a potential I could have gone to the dry tyre, but there wasn't any point at that point. But we knew from the testing I've done that one tank of fuel puts us right on the edge of that dry wet. If it was any dry, I'd have gone, to be honest, because it was really quick, and overall race time would have been quicker when I pitted to go on dry tyres if it was dry enough, but it wasn't. So, and then the idea of risking it didn't make sense in the end anyway. So it was back to the wets. I stayed on what I had, should I say.
Oh, I appreciate the insights there, and such fine margins as well to know whether to stay on the wet or to go to the slick tyre. And like you say, the fuel tank also being a challenge because you hadn't pitted compared to everybody else early on, but you got it absolutely right in the end, and no real pressure as such other than just keep it on the road. Although I can imagine you couldn't stop concentrating for 1 minute because this Red Bull ring circuit, you run even 1 inch out onto those curbs in the wet, you're gone.
Yeah, to be honest, the Red Bull ring's relatively boring, but luckily we had strategy to calculate. It was a moving goalpost, and we was all talking it out and what we can and can't do, what should and shouldn't do, and it turned out there was no benefit to go to the dry tyre in the end anyway. But it was just keep your powder dry to the end.
Well, you did exactly that and stayed out of trouble and took the win in the end, and well, leading home a 1-2, of course, because Christopher Petty, your teammate, bringing home the club win in second. I mean, that must have felt special.
Unbelievable. Absolutely gunning for the team's championship as well. And we've maxed out tonight, so we've hit an absolute maximum, so that cannot harm our chances. So with 1 round to go, it'd be nice to potentially lay off, but there's no chance with the teams on the line as well, so we've got to do it for the other boys as well.
Oh, very true. And, well, we look forward to seeing what you and the team can do and bring to the table at Suzuka. Speaking of which, the Japanese circuit, how confident are you feeling you can perhaps take your 7th win of the season?
I'm confident around there. I'm confident in this Mustang. It's an unbelievable car for me. It's really clicked with it. Yeah, I'm hoping they all turn up and we have a door banger and a decent time of it there.
Oh, it would be fantastic if we did get that and get to see you battling with the likes of Barry Wenman, Ellen Olsen, James Haworth and company. And we'll have to wait and see who does turn up in a week's time for the finale. But just before we do let you go, Liam, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to as our champion-elect?
Yep. We're so glad to see many of you lovely people here tonight. We'd especially like to welcome the representatives for the Illinois law enforcement community who have chosen to join us here in the Palace Hotel Ballroom at this time. We sincerely hope that you all enjoy the show, and please remember, no matter who you are and where you live, thrive to survive, and still ran out of text, and everybody needs somebody. And I made a mess of that, but thank you to you, thank you to the Moonshiner Boys and all the people in the league.
Well, you're definitely about 75% of the way there, and I definitely got it. I had to stop myself from laughing. I love it, Liam.
Yes,
Don't ever change.
Now we're serious.
Well, we'll leave you to it, Liam. Congratulations on your 6th win and becoming champion-elect in Premier. Go celebrate. Have a fantastic evening. We'll see you at Suzuka.
Thank you. Bye now.
So here and there from Liam Fraser. If you're wondering what he was referring to, ladies and gentlemen, it's a big quote from the Blues Brothers movie. And well, I think him and his brother James have decided that they've donned the cars up as Blues Brothers machines and going full Blues Brothers mode. And to be fair, why not? And what a way to celebrate as well. And again, out of Dodge in the Ford Mustang today. And the MRC bootleggers driver going for the gamble when it came to what was the conditions, start in the wet, and it worked out, and they'd absolutely dialed it to a T in terms of the strategy. Full confidence, and definitely toned himself to the point of knowing he didn't need to battle. All he needed to do is make sure he survives on the wet tyre long enough, and he would be rewarded. Looking forward to Suzuka, and knowing the MRC Bootleggers team have still got a job to do. They've still got a team's championship to take, but goodness me, if they've taken one big step towards it with a 1-2 in the overall finishing positions, but of course, most importantly, both 100 points for Liam Fraser and teammate in club class, because he was the winner in the class of none other than Christo Petty. But we'll have to see whether they can make that a reality and have a perfect end to the season. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. We'll be right back. And so, ladies and gents, we now come to the club class, and joining me in the interview room is a man we haven't spoken to in some time. It's none other than Andy Chell. Andy, good evening to you. What a round you've had. 16th to 9th in the end. It was up, down, a bit around as well, but you made it into the top 10 at least, so something to be happy about.
Evening, Paul. Yeah, it was a fun one tonight, to be honest with you. Yeah, genuinely good fun tonight.
Well, you definitely sound like you've had a lot of fun out there. Let's try and break it down into a few parts. Starting off with, of course, the Red Bull Ring and the conditions. Of course, it was never going to be quite a race day about qualifying. I suspect it was more a day of getting the right setup on the car. How had you gone setup-wise? Had you decided to go for a wet setup, a compromise, or go for a dry setup?
No, full wet setup. Full wet setup. So for qualifying, I was running, because I haven't had the ability to practice much this week because I've been building my new sim rig. So yesterday was my first day getting everything set once I'd built it all. So today's been the first actual full run in it. So I didn't get a lot of practice. So the quali session really was more of a get my eye in with the track, really, to be honest with you. And then because we expected the rain fairly early, even though we were the forecast was 15 minutes, we thought it's probably going to come earlier than that. We hedged the bets a little. Cy was on a wet setup but went with dries. I went full wet with full wet tyres to start with. So yeah, it was very much I know I'm not going to do so well in quali, but that's not what I'm aiming for here. I'm aiming for just to get my eye in and then be able to have a hopefully quite uneventful race. That was the plan. Which, yeah, seemed to execute quite well, actually, to be fair.
Oh, most definitely. And like you say, that priority of the race rather than qualifying and using qualifying more as a bit of a practice session, well, definitely paid off. Now, just remind me, did you opt to start on the wet tyre or did you start on the slick tyre?
Wet.
And out of curiosity, because I believe you started from the pit lane as well?
Correct, yeah.
Now, was it all part of the plan there? Because obviously, starting from the pit lane, you're only released once the field goes past the race start line. So in theory, you're not putting as much heat into the wet tyre.
Correct, exactly. That was the whole thought process. So we're not doing a full lap warming tyres, essentially. We're also saving a lap of fuel, which means we can go longer, which was another consideration. So yeah, it was a tactical play. And yeah, it worked quite nicely, I think, to be honest with you.
Oh, most definitely. We did see you gain quite a lot of time, particularly when the rain started to fall and the slick shod runners all had to gradually give up what was their slick tyres to go to the wet. And for yourself, we saw you make some very steady ground up there, although, of course, not without perhaps a mistake or two, unfortunately.
Yeah, I got shouted at for that. I'm not gonna lie. Mike shouted at me for that. He literally just told me to avoid the curves, and I ran over the curb at the the final corner. So I did get a little bit of a telling off. But it's one of them, isn't it? It's an easy mistake to make. And as much as I hate to say it, it is very much I'm driving the car, I know better, and then it's like, actually, no, I don't. So, yeah, it's one where, and we've had it before, we had it at Le Mans as well, where Mike's made a suggestion. I thought, car feels okay, no, I don't think we should, and then that's come and bit me in the bum. So, yeah, definitely one where when you've got a mic on your pit wall, you should listen to him, because turns out he knows what he's talking about. But which I'm sorry to say, next season we're not going to, because he's back in the car next season for us. Which double-edged sword. You know, he's a fantastic talent, so it's going to be nice to have him back on the track with us. But it does mean we lose such a brilliant engineer. So yeah, we're going to be making a lot of use of him at Suzuka. Putting through his paces just to make up for it. But yeah, that was it. It's just getting a bit too overconfident, and it tried to loop around. But yeah, I think all in all, the car was quite nice today.
Oh, indeed, to be fair to you, when you were avoiding the curves and listening to what Mike was saying, you looked quite quick out there and the car looked quite composed. And with this top 10 result, I mean, you've had a couple of top 10s this season, perhaps not your best result, but up there, it does put you in a position whereby you're still chasing 6th place in the club championship going to Suzuka. Are you happy with that, given how the season has gone?
Yeah, I'm a little shocked to be as high up as I am, given how results have gone. We've struggled a lot to get the Aston in a window though where it can compete with some of the more, I don't want to say meta cars, but there have been cars this season that have suited tracks a lot better. The McLaren's definitely been one that has suited the tracks a lot better. So we've struggled to be able to get it on a point where it can fight, but yeah, I am quite happy with that, to be honest with you. I am. It's something I've said to you before in other seasons and other championships. For me, it's all about the points. It's not about out and out wins, because at the end of the day, points mean prizes, and it's better to come home with fewer points than come home with no points at all. So yeah, it's been one of them where it's presently surprising, and the same for Simon. Simon's still being in the top 12, given that we have struggled a little bit, has been quite a good result for the team overall.
Oh, 100%. And the fact that both yourself and Simon have been constantly pushing inside the top 12 and always in and out of the top 10, if not a stalwart of the top 10, it shows how well Quatermass is doing thus far. But of course, one more round to go. Suzuka, dry conditions. It's a undroppable round as well, so every point matters. How you feeling for it?
Controversially, I don't like Suzuka. I don't have a good time there. I don't know what it is, but every time I've been there, I've ended up in the wall. So I'll be honest, if I cross that line, doesn't matter where I cross that line, if I cross that line, we've had a better race than I've had. Especially when it's the final race of the season, I always end up with something bad going on. So yeah, that'll be the overall objective, to be honest with you, will be to finish. If I can finish ahead of those behind me and chasing me for the 6th spot, then excellent. I don't think I'm in chance for 5th now. I think Rob's managed to secure that because he's been doing fantastic lately. So yeah, I think if I can bring it home and secure 6th, that'll be amazing. But to be honest, bringing it home is going to be a victory in of itself. So yeah, that'll be mission number 1.
Oh, fair play to you. We'll prioritise getting to the finish. You never know, you might be pleasantly surprised with how you do at Suzuka. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yeah, I've mentioned him already, Mike. As I've said, if you've got a mic, listen to him. But in all seriousness, it is really, really amazing to have him on the wall. You know, as we've spoken before, he's my best friend. So having him there is amazing. as always, yourself, it's brilliant to watch the streams back, even when I don't come and have a chat with you. It's always brilliant to hear your voice, and thank you so much for doing that. All the SRI team, I know a lot of hard work's put into it, especially from a stewarding point of view, so I really want to shout out everybody that does that. And then to all the B-Split drivers, really, I've had a really fantastic season with them, and yeah, hoping for more next season.
Oh, fantastic. And it's been great to have you join me this evening. Great to hear your continued enthusiasm and enjoyment of being on the grid. Even when things don't always go 100% right, you're always up for a good fight in class. Well, we look forward to seeing you back out at Suzuka in a week's time to see if you can end the season on a high for the Quetmass Motorsport team. But until then, have a lovely evening, and thank you for joining me once again.
Thank you very much.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a happy Andy Chell, and really emphasising today all the focus was on the race. Qualifying, didn't really care about it, where to use it as benchmarking time to get some practice in and make sure that Andy was happy with the car. The only downside today really was the fact they got it all right on strategy, got it all right on setup, but it was driver perhaps not listening to the man on the pit wall, Mike Barber, saying to Andy, avoid the curbs, and in the end, Andy touching the curbs there, having a couple of key incidents that cost him the chance perhaps of bringing on home a top 5 in the club class, or at least say 6th or 7th. Still a top 10, keeps him well within the hunt for 6th place in the club championship, going into our season finale at Suzuka. A little bit too far away perhaps from the trophy spots, the top 5. But still, if he can end up finishing 6th this season, as he mentioned there, he'll be very happy. And with Suzuka, not one of his favourite circuits, so he's definitely got a lot of work to do. But the flip side of the coin is, if you go to a circuit which you're expecting to be weak at, you may just surprise yourself. And perhaps Andy Chell will have one last surprise up his sleeve come the end here of Season 13. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, there's another interview coming up. We'll be right back. And so, ladies and gents, we head back to the Premier class, because joining me now in the interview room is going to be none other than the man who finished runner-up today in Premier. It's Barry Wenman. Barry, good evening to you. What a topsy-turvy race for yourself. And in the end, a race where you perhaps had a remote chance of keeping the Premier Championship alive. But to be fair to you, you've almost secured 2nd place in the Championship with a result. But how was it for you?
Yeah, qualifying didn't go to plan. Got blocked a few times on laps. Just couldn't find that clean bit of track. So, but still not too bad. I think I was around P6 in quali, maybe around P7. And then during the first stint, it started off pretty well, and then I think around lap 10, I just lost it down at turn 7. The back end just stepped out on me, and I've ended up sideways facing the fence. Managed to kind of get myself sorted out relatively quickly, and return to the track in 15th, and then it was just head down. I had to make a few dive bomby moves and make up some places, but to come back through from 15th to work, I think at one point I was about 10 seconds off James Haworth and the guys battling for 3rd, and I managed just to bring that down like half a second a lap and get on the back of him, and then it was just a case of making the moves quickly, not getting stuck behind anyone. And yeah, to come back through and finish 2nd, I mean, it was all I could do really from what had happened, and kind of a slim chance of something happening to Liam, but fair play, he's deserved this one. He's done really well all season.
Oh, indeed. And, well, fair play to yourself as well, because like you say, coming all the way back through the field and to finish in 2nd place. Not many could do it, particularly with the mistake you had, plus also the conditions and the constantly evolving ones at that. Although, of course, I do have to ask, the decision to start on the slick tyre. Obviously, hindsight says you may have regretted it, but at the time, what influenced you to do it?
So we had us all in the team chats. So we've got like the couple of lads in the A split, and then the rest of us in the B split, and it was unanimous. I literally was like, "What tyres, guys?" No, unanimous decision for slicks. Rain in 15, so it was like, okay, go for slicks. Gridded up as we got set up for the formation lap. Pushed the weather button on my wheel, and he goes rain in 5 minutes, and it was like, well, that's that done then. See you later, Liam. So, yeah, I mean, not ideal. I think without the mistake, I know Liam was cruising a bit, but I might have had a slim chance of catching up to him. I had some really good pace in the wet today. But It happens. They made the right decision. We made the wrong one. We live and we learn.
Oh, 100%. You have to take it on the chin, like you say. And when you make the wrong decision, you lie with the decision, you make the most of it. And we really did see you go on the attack in the wet conditions. It makes me want to ask, setup-wise on the car, had you gone in for a more wet-orientated setup? Because you were rapid when the rain fell.
So I did a few laps last night, and I put the wet setup on, and it felt safe, but it didn't feel fast. So I went for the dry. Like, we've got another few setups for the dry, and I went for the safe setup in the dry, and chucked that on. Made no changes to it at all, and I mean, it was just on fire. It was on rails. Back end was a bit loose, but it meant I was able to get the power down a lot earlier because I'd have that rotation and. I had the confidence in the front end, whereas with the full wet setup, it just felt really numb on the front. So the car was on point today. Not so much me, but I brought it back in the end.
Oh, indeed you did. It may not be 100% perfect, but to be fair, you definitely chased those places and brought home that second place. And of course, battling hard with your sister team driver, James Haworth. The two of you fought so hard towards the end, but you found the upper hand. What was it that you feel gave you the edge?
I've just had the momentum, I think. Like I said, I've been chipping away at the whole group. As soon as I kind of cleared the first few cars, I think I was in about 12th or 11th. I was looking at the gaps and I could see it was about 8 seconds. And I looked down the next lap and it was 7 seconds. I'm like, oh my, I'm taking a second a lap out here. So I knew, like, once I got to him, just don't waste any time getting past the guys. There was like I said, a few dive bomby ones. I can't remember who it was, but one of them I sent him from about a car and a half behind and somehow still made it slow down in time. But yeah, then with James, it was brilliant. So we just went completely silent in the Discord chat. There was normally there's a bit of, okay, let's keep it clean, or I'll just sit in behind. No, we just went silent. And yeah, good close racing with James. I knew he'd have I thought I might be able to make it work all the way around the outside of the hairpin. But then, obviously, with him having the inside line for turn 4, I knew exactly what I wanted to do with the switchback, and it worked.
Oh, goodness me. Well, the two of you really locking in and concentrating. But like you say, you made it work in the end, and that was all down at Rauschbend at turn number 4. But bringing home that second place, a great result. Another podium added to your collection for this season, and one more round to go. Suzuka, all the points count. It's an undroppable round. Can you end the season on a high and take a win?
Yeah, I've got a nick one off Liam. The only win I've had this season was when he was absent, so I've got to try and at least beat him once.
Oh, fair play. I'm loving the spirit already to see if he can steal away what would be his chances of a 7th win. But just before we do let you go, Barry, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Just yourself, really, doing a mega job with the streams. Always love watching them back every week. The DXT guys always doing a great job. I almost lost my head a couple of times tonight, but they keep me on the straight and narrow, so I don't ever lose my cool too much. But yeah, the DXT boys, yourself, and the admins of the league, I'll definitely be signing up for season 14, that's for sure.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we definitely look forward to seeing you at Suzuka and to be back for season 14 as well. But with that, thank you for joining me for an interview and congratulations again on taking the runner-up spot in Premier today. A well-deserved result. Let's see if you can make it a win next time at Suzuka. But until then, my friend, go celebrate and have a wonderful evening.
Cheers again. Have a good one.
So here now, ladies and gentlemen, from Dexterous Motorsports Magenta's Barry Wenman. And in the end, you could definitely hear it in his voice. We asked the question about the hindsight and what influenced the strategy to start on the slick tyre. And we'll simply do it as a unanimous decision between him and his teammates across both splits. But as soon as they heard that rain was coming in 5 minutes, they were made to regret it, or at least Barry Wenman. But to be fair, even with that, and even with some mistakes, he did not give up. And his spirit in the end is what made him be able to chase down James Haworth for that runner-up spot and did a brilliant job, and he plenty of back and forth between the tries, no doubt about it, but making that move right at the end when it mattered most with the switchback. And for Barry Wenman, it could be a result that may give him the confidence that he secured second place in the Premier Championship and he can go all in for trying to steal a win off of Liam Fraser at Suzuka in a week's time. James Haworth still theoretically can take that result, we do believe, although the standings have not been updated. We're doing it based on mental maths, but right now Barry Wenman definitely looking to be second best in the championship this season. but can he just take one bigger step right at the end in Japan? Well, as we now come to our next interview, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we continue the theme of oscillating classes as we now head back to the club class. And joining me in the interview room is none other than James Fraser. James, good evening to you. What a race for yourself. Not quite the win you've been chasing, but second place and part of an absolute epic run of results for the MRC teams. I mean, you must be over the moon.
I am. It's bittersweet, but it's much more sweet than it is bitter.
Oh, very true. And well, here today, qualifying, 7th place in class, 22nd overall. Something tells me you weren't really bothered about where you qualified. You were thinking more about the race.
Yeah, I was just trying to emulate what I did on Tuesday at the practice race, and I got kind of near it. But it was more like, it was the anticipate, it was do your best, because we're waiting for that moment when everyone grids to see if everyone's with us or not. And luckily, I have no idea why, but we seem to be the only ones wanting to give a bit of pain to the wets for a few laps.
Well, it definitely was the right strategic call in the end from yourself, your brother, and the other Moonshiners drivers. I mean, it must have been hard for you at first, for those opening 5 minutes, to resist the urge to battle, because we know you love a good scrap with other drivers.
Oh, it was. We've just come out of the conversation about that exact thing, and I was just saying, I think I lost 12 on lap 1, and then a further 3 or 4, 5 maybe on lap 2, and it was, no worries, it's coming back to us. And again, like you say, just stay out of everyone's way, everyone's traction zoning. I'm like, yep, I'm on the racing line, I'm staying predictable, I want to be alive when you all pit.
Well, your patience definitely proved very valuable in the end, because when the rain did come, we saw everyone duck into the pits, be able to pick up the spots left, right and centre. But of course then, the race changed a little bit in the fact that we saw Rob Gregg leading, yourself and also Christopher Petty. I mean, a chance at a 1-2-3, but I can imagine you wanted to be number one in the 1-2-3.
Yeah, and I was number one in the 1-2-3 for a short while. But huge kudos to Chris, massive, because out of me, Rob and Chris had a couple of moments. I had a 1 spin, I think Rob had 2. So consistency is key, and congratulations to Chris for bringing home his first win.
Oh, indeed. A huge result for Chris, no doubt about it. And for yourself, okay, there were a couple of mistakes, but it didn't stop you from going all in, not just for second place, but also, I think there as well, trying to chase down the 3rd place spot on the overall podium. I mean, you were ferocious towards the end of the race. I think we must have seen what was Barry Wenman and James Haworth have the hardest fight of their season, not with another driver in their class, but with you.
Well, them 2 drivers are very fair. And the top guys as well, so it was a lot of respect that built up over a few seasons between the 3 of us. So I'm sure that showed. We would stayed out of each other's way, but then I think I can go through. Right, okay, you go through. If you don't get away, right, okay, then you can. Just respect built up through, well, like in the conversations afterwards, and then your conduct on track. And yeah, top guys. When you're getting top guys racing, you're gonna get respect and stuff like that. And that's what we had a lot of tonight.
Oh, 100%. Like you say, plenty of respect shown between yourselves. And in the end, you weren't quite able to keep Barry Wenman behind, but you kept James Haworth behind. And a huge result, your best of the season. I do have to ask, strategically, we did see you come into the pits quite early. I presume you knew straight away there's no chance you're going to slicks in this race.
No, the conversation was going on, and in all our testing, it did get drier quicker. And in the AI races, we were getting, we all did like 1 each, and we were all like, yeah, that's a tough call. It's going to be a tough call, but on the day, it just didn't seem to dry as quick, and I feel like that really helped us out, because had it have been the other way, Paul, I think there would have been a lot more breathing down our neck towards the end.
Oh, 100%. I think it would have been a bit of a scary ending, but it didn't work out the way, and thank goodness so from your perspective. And of course, a second place, your first podium of the season, and it will, I do believe, now move you into the top 10 of the club championship. Taking a trophy, not possible at this point in the club class, but you still got a good shot for 6th in that title fight, and you've also got a good opportunity to bring home the team's championship title at Suzuka. So, all to play for?
All to play for in the teams. We just a shout out to Ashley Shucksmith as well, who's just been Mr. Consistent all season. Him and Liam have been carrying us basically. Don't think anyone needs me to tell them that. They realise. So Ashley today again, he's the king of the comeback drive, isn't he? He's just there behind you all the time. It's like, hang on a minute, I thought you were sideways before. I thought you were in a wall a minute ago. No, he's right up, and he's caught me up, and he's gone past me every other race apart from today. So big up to Ashley.
Oh, indeed. A driver who sometimes goes under the radar, but he's been Mr. Consistent, like you say, and taking the points away from many. And thinking about Suzuka for yourself, James, is it a circuit you normally go well at?
It is absolutely not. I believe in the last 2 times we have raced in SRI, I have tasted much the wall. So it's somewhere, we all love it, but I always seem to just overstretch a little bit there. So it might be a case of let's not crash this time round at Suzuka, I think, for me.
Oh, fair play. Well, fingers crossed, no incidents for yourself at Suzuka, and it can be a happy end to the season. But just before we end our interview, is there anyone else you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yeah, just a shout out. Congratulations to Liam. The absolute geek has been feeding us, him and Dean have been feeding us golden information all season. So we make our little adjustments on the back of them two, bouncing off each other. And just to point out our change of livery, we've gone with the Blues Brothers livery today, because we believe it's going to be the second to last, maybe the last time we ever race in the same split. So we thought, why not go with the Blues Brothers? And hopefully we're on a mission from God, and it helped us out.
I do love that. That's a very bittersweet story there, and well, it's brilliant to see the liveries there, although we haven't seen all the police cars crashing around you. We should add that as well. Hopefully that's not...
We took care of that as well at the end of the race and in the warm-up session, don't you worry. We definitely broke a few watches anyway.
Oh, goodness me. Well, loving the story behind the liveries, James, and hopefully will we get to see those again at Suzuka?
You will not. They won't be on. That'll be my official livery though forever, if I ever do any officials.
Oh, brilliant. Well, it's been great to see the liveries out there, and well, great to see you finally taking up that podium finish you've been chasing in club for some time now this season. Congratulations once again. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, and we'll see you at Suzuka in a week's time.
Cheers, mate. Cheers, Paul. Brilliant as always. About to watch it again. Thank you, mate.
No worries. So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for a very happy James Fraser, and that story there with regards to the Blues Brothers liveries, and quite poignant, saying this might be the last time, the last season, that he and his brother Liam race in the same split in this championship. And indeed, should Liam take the crown, well, he has done so, you would expect naturally he is going to be moving up into the what would be the pro class, so going up to split A. And for James Fraser, well, still a bit of work to do to move up into Premier and then eventually get to pro. So that's why the Blues Brothers have been out there today, and well, definitely on a mission from God for both of them, and goodness me, did they both do a brilliant job. But focusing on James in particular, all the emphasis on getting the best possible lap he could in qualifying, and knowing he had to simply bite down hard and not give in to temptation to burn the wet tyres at the start of the race and fight. and he was rewarded for it handsomely, but in the end, the only thing that scuppered his chances of a club win, much like at Daytona, was a self-inflicted mistake, albeit this one not strategic. It was out on track, but did very well to take the second place finish and make sure to be part of the 1-2-3 on the club class podium for Moonshine's Racing Club, with Christopher Petty getting a big shout out there for his first win, and also for Ashley Shucksmith taking his 6th podium with that 3rd place in the class. And for the MRC outfit, it's definitely looking to be a season that's heading towards a high, and James Fraser absolutely embodying that there as he talked about it. But with that, ladies and gents, we've got a couple more interviews still to come. We've got a bumper edition here because we had such a great day of racing. We'll be right back for our 5th interview of the day. And ladies and gentlemen, we come back to the Premier Class for the final time of our interviews, and joining me now in the interview room is none other, another James. It's James Haworth. James, good evening to you. What a cracking day of racing for yourself. Not quite the win you were chasing, but to be fair, you were in the thick of the fighting non-stop and finishing 3rd in Premier in the end. I mean, you must be pleased, even if you did miss out versus both Liam and Barry.
Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with it. The pace was solid during the dry period, but in the wet I kind of struggled a little bit. The fight with Menno and Ellen at the beginning was literally heart racing for me. I loved every second of it, but overall I am pretty pleased with P3.
Well, undoubtedly, I should be pleased with the result. Like you say, some absolute heart-racing racing early on. Qualifying, of course, you took pole position quite early in the qualifying session. It seemed quite confident, and I get the feeling when Menno Blom stole it right at the end, you probably think to yourself, how on earth has he just done that?
To be fair, Paul, I didn't really notice until the qualifying finish. I was like, oh, I'm starting second then. But as soon as I got pole in the second part with like 10 minutes to go, I was trying to give a little draft to the teammates and potentially the sister team, but it didn't work out as well as I hoped. But yeah, P2 was quite surprising, but really quick lap from Menno.
Well, Menno may have had a rapid lap, but the flip side of the coin being you were rapid at the start. Although, of course, opting to start on the slick tyre rather than the wet tyre, hindsight would say wasn't the right call. But at the time, what influenced the call? Was it the conversations with the other teammates?
Yeah, pretty much. They said 15 minutes of racing before the rain started to come over. So, in hindsight, that was probably about 13 to 15 laps of racing. And as soon as I heard MRC lot was on wets, I was like, well, this could either go one or two ways. And then as soon as the formation lap finished, it was just like 5 minutes to go. And I'm like, well, this is just now I'm playing catch up. But end of the day, you win some, you lose some with strategy calls, and that was a benefiting factor.
Oh, very true. And after you commit to the strategy, there's nowhere to go other than develop from there. And we did see you really get to grips with the wet conditions out there. But this Red Bull Ring circuit, of course, so many places where you've got to hammer the throttle, even the wet. And this Mustang, not quite the car it used to be in the wet.
No, to be fair, it's not. It's improved because last season and the season before, I hated the rain in the Mustang, and this season I've actually enjoyed it because it's a lot more stable on the rear end. It was just trying to pick the right setup. I did use a dry setup today because obviously I thought it was going to be like 10-15 minutes worth of rain and the track will dry up. So I'm like, well, go on to hopefully it'll dry up quicker as soon as I got into the pits. But as soon as my laps was depleting, the wet line was still there. So again, it was just one of them calls, and unfortunately it didn't pay out on my end.
Indeed, not too much paying off for yourself with regards to the calls, but we still got to see you deliver some absolutely fast and frantic racing, whether it was in the dry or in the wet. You never gave up fighting, and we saw you have some brilliant back and forth action with Ellen Olsen. I mean, in that Porsche, completely opposite end of the spectrum in terms of the strengths and weaknesses of the car. Did you find that out on track as well? You were quick some parts, but other places, Ellen just had the yards over you.
Yeah, being in the Porsche, it's rear engine, so she'll obviously get the traction out of the corners. So in the middle part of the track, it was just try and minimise the damage to the lap, not the lap, the no, what's the word? The gap, sorry. But on the straights, and I knew I had her in like turns 1 to 4, and then after that it was just trying to minimise the gap. But it was a good fight from Ellen.
Well, indeed, it was a good battle from Ellen in the end, and you were able to gradually get the upper hand. And we did see, of course, Ellen falling foul of a couple of instants, which moved her down the order and saw her try to go on a recovery drive. But where Ellen Olsen fell behind, you still had the company of none other than what was Barry Wenman, your sister team driver, of course, and you also had the challenge of making your way past the likes of James Fraser.
I was pretty much on the same pace as James. Obviously, with Ellen being, I would say a little bit too aggressive when she was passing James. Gave him a little love tap on the final corner. But I just bought my time. There was no point trying to battle James, if you know what I mean. Because he's in the club class. So, and obviously I knew he was running second. So I was just staying behind him, and one little mistake from him hit me go in front, and he was right up my gearbox at one point. So I just let him pass, which inevitably left the door wide open to Barry.
Well, bit of a difficult moment there, but still, yourself and Barry going on to have an absolutely brilliant back and forth battle. But as you mentioned at the start, in the end, or I think mentioned to him that in the end just didn't have the legs compared to what was Barry Wenman's McLaren. So that third place, but it's a podium on your return after having a week off for holiday. So not a bad result, and you've still got one more round to see if you can take a maiden win of the season at Suzuka.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. There's going to be a little surprise for everyone on my end. But I'm not going to tell it because that'll just give it away. But I really wanted to be in front of Barry to try and keep the fight for second place. Depending how these standings are being uploaded, depends if I can still mathematically take it. But congrats to Barry and congrats to Liam on winning as well.
Oh, what fair play. I'm sure they appreciate your kind words for them. And of course, Suzuka, we'll see whether you can end it on that high and, if it is mathematically possible, steal away the second place. But just before we let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention to on the broadcast?
Yeah, Liam for winning the championship. It was a really walk in the park, so to speak. But it was a good battle nonetheless all season. Yourself for the outstanding streams, and I hope you carry it on with us. The SRI admin team as well. Without them, none of this would have happened. The DXT team and the girlfriend Laura.
Well, James, thank you for joining me in the interview room. It's been a pleasure as always, and well done on a return to the podium straight away after missing Daytona. We'll see you at Suzuka to see whether you can end your season on the ultimate high of a win. But until then, savour the result and have a lovely rest of your evening.
Yeah, you too, Paul, mate. Take care.
So here in there, ladies and gentlemen, for our third place finish in the Premier Class day, James Haworth for Dexterous Motorsport sign. And really, you could summarise the way he really described his day was a day of incorrect calls. With regards to firstly, of course, the call to come into the pits and end qualifying early, and only discovering he'd be starting second as he left the qualifying session to Menabloem. Then the race as well, the wrong call with regards to tyres, but that was a Dexterous Motorsports call, to be fair. It wasn't on him. The whole team agreed to it, himself included. And in hindsight, of course, it was the wet tyre they should have started on. And also talking about the fact there, with regards to the setup of the car, that it was set up for a bit of a drier circuit rather than a wetter circuit, and made it just that little bit more difficult to extract the pace. But the flip side of the coins, he also talked about having plenty of fun at batting with other drivers and plenty of respect between himself, Ellen Olsen, also Barry Wenman, Govin Suresh also getting in the mix there. So it wasn't as though he had regrets for the racing today, but what could have been a chance at second place in the end just slipped out of his grasp at last possible moment. But he's going to see if he can make it win in the season finale, and if so, well, for James Haworth, it'd be a big achievement at Suzuka right at the end. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got our final interview to come. We'll be right back for our final interview of the day. And ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't quite complete our interviews without coming to this man, because joining me now is none other than Michael Rhodes in the interview room. Michael, good evening to you and appreciate you waiting. What a day it's been for yourself. Championship leader, of course, 75 points between yourself and the rest of the top four in club. And today, it may not have looked like it was going that way, but you have come off technically the second best from it, and you've technically extended your lead slightly. So it must be a good one, even if it was a bit of a rough one.
Oh, that was fun. That was really, really fun. Yeah, obviously it's close between, well, it was close between four of us. I think I gained on Jack and Josh. I didn't gain on Ashley. Tried to at the end, but yeah, good race all around. I'll take the fourth.
Oh, and indeed. And it was always going to be tight. We saw at the start in qualifying, third place from yourself in class 12th overall. And the pace so small in terms of those gaps between yourself, Josh as well, quite close to you. Also, we saw Jack up there. Ashley Shucksmith a bit further back, doing his classic, qualifying towards the back of the top 10 and somehow end up right at the front of the field. I mean, you must have sat there and thought to yourself, this isn't going to come down to qualifying. It's going to come down to the calls in the race.
Yeah, 100%. 100% knew it was going to be raised. I knew qualifying was going to be tight. It's a very short track in terms of lap time. So I was happy with where I came. I don't think I could have got any more out of it. Maybe potentially if I got a good lap or a bit more of a toe, but I didn't. So I knew it was always going to be down to the race. As soon as that weather was going to hit, it was always what to do.
Now, of course, coming on to the race, we've asked this question to our other interviewees. You opted to start on the slick tyre, which in the end of hindsight was not the right call necessarily, but what made you go for the slick tyre?
Panic, if anything. It was a very close to go on to the wets. And then I saw more and more drivers behind me go on the wets, and I thought, it's gonna be a good call. But I still went with it, and I think when I went onto the wets later on, there was a section where me and Barry were like quite quick. So I thought, okay, if I can keep this pace going, I can potentially do something. Had a spin, was behind Jack for a good few extra laps that I didn't really need to be. So I think that's potentially where I lost the time of maybe challenging for the win. But yeah, I just thought, if most people are going on dries, I'll take the risk. But I think, yeah, obviously it seems wet with the right call.
Well, it might have been the incorrect call for yourself, but like you say as well, you did get your head down and push on with regards to pace. There was that spin that you did have back on lap 21. I mean, obviously we're not going to analyse it in detail, but was it just perhaps driving a bit too hard or just hitting the curb?
I have no idea. I'd have to look back. I think I just started to feel the rear go, and I was like, oh no. And I saw Barry in my rearview mirror, and I was like, please don't hit Barry. So luckily he didn't, and he avoided me really well. So yeah, I think it just went in maybe a little bit too hot. I'll have to look it back and see what I did, but it's just one of them. I was happy with the way I was driving for 90% of that race. So yeah, it happens. You make a mistake every now and again. It just didn't cost me as much, thank God.
Oh, 100%. Even with the smallest mistakes, it's going to cost you time, but the fact it didn't cost you too much time was quite beneficial. And we saw you get your head back down again and go chasing after Ashley Shucksmith, but just a little bit too long in the tooth was the gap. I mean, you must be sitting there thinking to yourself, I need to beat him, but you must have also been reminding yourself at certain points, well, remember who you need to beat first before you beat Ashley Shucksmith.
Yeah, it was a little bit like that. I was trying to keep an eye on where Joshua was, and I think he was 11th where he finished. So yeah, I think that was my main worry. But I think it's still going to be, there's still work to do. I think Ashley getting him on me, probably still 30, 40 points behind. So there's still a bit of work to do. But I did try at the end. I think I went deep into 4 about 2 laps before, and then that pretty much lost any chance of being close to him for the pass. So yeah, it happens.
Well, it may not have been quite the opportunity to take the podium, but a 4th place, limitation of damage there, 1 round remains. You are, of course, the favourite because you will have the lead going into Suzuka, but it's an undroppable round. How are you feeling for our Japanese finale?
Knowing that Dean's going to be there, terrified. Because we've had that word. So yeah, potentially terrified if Dean's there, but obviously anything can go. I know me and Joshua had it a few seasons ago where we were down to the last race, and I had a mare and I had to climb back, and I luckily got it at the end. So hopefully I don't do that again this time, and I just get my head down and just get a decent position, and obviously see where Ashley is, and don't do any silly mistakes. Basically, don't overdrive where I need to. It's a nice track. I like driving it. So yeah, hopefully have a no dramatic race.
Well, we can only wish that you do have a non-dramatic finale at Suzuka, but we'll have to say in a week's time if that's the way it plays out. But just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the stream?
Shout out to the team Docking Racing as always. Love racing them. Obviously, me and Lewis as a two-man team, but trying to keep on that 5th place. Hopefully, we still are. And obviously, just shout out to you for the commentary, and obviously for the SRI team for past few seasons to be with them. It's been brilliant to race in this league with all the other drivers.
Well, Michael, it's been fantastic to catch up with yourself as always and hear your story from the day. Not quite the podium, but a 4th place, and it could prove to be a valuable one come the season finale next week. We'll have to wait and see how it goes in Suzuka. But until then, my friend, congratulations on a solid result, and thank you for your time in the interview room. Hope you have a great rest of your evening.
You too. Take care.
So here and there from Michael Rhodes, ladies and gentlemen, our final interview of the day. An interesting way he talked about today in the end. Again, another one of those ones whereby realising as other drivers switched to the wet tyre just before we did go on the formation lap, that he may have made the wrong call, but he decided to roll with it, and he did make the most out of it. And really pinning today down, not on that call, but on the error on lap 21. That saw him go for a brief spin. Thankfully, that got killed up with any other drivers, but the damage was done at that point, and the pursuit of what would have been the chances of the win came to an end. Still push hard to chase after Ashley Shucksmith 9. If he could beat Shucksmith, he would be beating all of his rivals going into the season finale, but it wasn't quite so, as we do see quite an analogous image there of Shucksmith coming on through as Rhodes leaves the pit lane on your camera view. And, well, that really being the story. That it was Shucksmith just a little bit too far away today. But credit where it's due to Michael. Didn't give up, kept pushing, and knows he goes into the Suzuka finale with an advantage. But now can he convert it into a championship crown? Well, only next week will tell the story. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And let's give you a quick recap of who we've spoken to. Because we've had a grand total of 6 interviews today. We thought we'd have a bit of a bumper edition before our season finale, given the challenging nature of today's race and the conditions at the Red Bull Ring. We spoke initially to Liam Fraser in the Premier class, winner and champion-elect in the Premier Championship. And then we went to Andy Chell, speaking to the driver in the club class, who's today converted 16th to 9th, had plenty of fun, but it could have been a little bit more if you've been listening to the voice on the pit wall. Then we came to Barry Wenman, the Premier class runner-up for Dexterous Motorsports Magenta, getting the upper hand on James Haworth, the Dexterous Motorsports Science sister team driver. We spoke to him as well, but between the two of them, we also caught up with James Fraser, brother to Liam Fraser for MRC Bootleggers, and hearing the perspectives of both teammates there, as James Fraser went on to take that 2nd place in the club class, and was very happy of it, but of course a bittersweet one, losing out on the win in the class to teammate Krista Petty. After speaking to Haworth, our 5th interviewee, we then came to Michael Rhodes for Darkwing Racing, and when we completed our interviews with him, hearing his story of how in the end he couldn't quite make it on the podium due to a small mistake, but definitely gained ground on most of his championship rivals, bar one. But big thank you to all 6 of our interviews. It's been a blast catching up with all after the great racing today, and plenty more interviews to come, of course, in our season finale in a week's time at Suzuka. With that, it's time for us to wrap up. And thank you very much for watching. And if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know how you can get on the grid here at SimRacing International, well, the best place to do so is join the official Discord. Invite link available at the bottom of your screen. And if you join today, well, most of our seasons are coming to a close, but you can always get yourself signed up for the next season of the likes of the Thursday GT3 Championship, which you've been tuning into today. Season 13 is the current season, but we're almost at the end, and Season 14 sign-ups are not too far away. Alternatively, if you prefer racing GT3 at the weekend, well, Season 19 of the UK SimRacing Sunday Showdown is coming to a close soon. We've only got 2 rounds remaining in that, but that's every week, and Season 20 sign-ups will be opening up very soon, so you'll definitely want to miss out on those. But if you're looking for something that's ongoing and by no means coming to the end of its current season, it's only had 2 rounds thus far, we do have our Friday evening GT Championship Season 3. We've put the endurance back in Grand Touring endurance cars every 2 weeks. It's 1.5 hour and 2 hour races, and if you are a GTE fan, you will not be be disappointed getting on the grid for that. But if you want something even bigger, perhaps you want to take part in our biggest championship yet where prizes are concerned, we do have our Motorsport UK Esports Approved Championship, the Transatlantic Trophy Season 1, dedicated to the machinery of Bruce McLaren, the McLaren GT3 and GT4 machines. Our biggest prize pool running on Wednesday evenings every 2 weeks. And we just had round number 2 and round number 3 is coming up in 2 weeks' time. But regardless of what series you want to get involved in, you'll need to be part of the Discord if you want to be part of it. And if you're looking just to dip your toes in at the shallowest end of the pool, well, of course, we do have our Practice League, which runs on a weekly basis, and there's free races available, orientating and varying on a weekly basis to align with our official championships. So there's never been a better time to get on the grid at SimRacing International, whether you're a rookie driver all the way through to an esports professional. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, including CarMate, Modern Technology, our trophy designer and manufacturer, also the GP2 Group, and lastly, we'd like to say a big thank you to Motorsport UK's esports division for recognising us as a recommended community here at SimRacing International. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may it continue throughout 2026 and beyond. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, there's only one round left. Suzuka's Grand Prix circuit, located in the Mie Prefecture of Japan. We head there on Thursday, the 3rd of September 2026. Save the date, a week from now. And much like in the older years of Formula 1, where it would be the championship crowning round, we're definitely seeing our champions crown there across both splits, Split A and Split B, and also in the Teams Championship, of course. And we do have for Split B our champion-elect in the Premier class. It is none other than Liam Fraser. But still, the question that stands, who's going to be runner-up? It's looking likely to be Barry Wenman, but can James Haworth spring a late surprise? And meanwhile, in the club class, Michael Rhodes holds the lead, but Ashley Shucksmith, Joshua Downing, and Jack Charles all want a piece of the title. But can they have it, or is it all going to be Michael Rhodes? And in the Teams Championship, will it be the Moonshiners Racing Club teams that take a 1-2, or can Dexterous Motorsports, Magenta, and Cyan potentially put a fork between the Rebels and the Bootleggers and potentially steal the crown back right at the end? For all that and more, you'll need to tune in next time. But until then, ladies and gentlemen, we've been SimRacing International. You've been tuning into our Thursday GT3 Championship Season 13, and I've been your host and commentator for Split B, Paul Walsh, and until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.